sister was struck by a skill at school. Now she was in the ICU, kept alive by life support. Her brother was filled with regret. He was a failure who had been hiding his power from the world. He had awakened a talent that lets him steal other people's abilities. So the moment he touched his sister, he accidentally stole her ability, D-rank metal explosion. While talking to his sister, he overheard his father arguing at the reception desk. He was furious. The lawyer was trying to buy his daughter's life with money, just because the person who did this came from a wealthy family. Our protagonist walked over and picked up the contract from the floor. He said they needed the money to keep paying for Fei-Fei's treatment, but he wanted to add a few more conditions to the agreement. After signing the contract, the lawyer got on the phone and said everything had been settled, though he had to add another 100,000 as compensation. That bastard took a sip of coke with a smug smile, saying he had handled it well. Now the protagonist stood by his sister's bedside. He promised her that he would find the bastard behind all of this. Now that he was an awakened, anything was possible, and that's when his plan for revenge began. First, he left home. He rented a room in a house where two girls were already living. He introduced himself as Yang Shi. While the blonde girl invited him to celebrate, he coldly walked away, saying he needed to unpack his things. Yang lay down on his bed, thinking about how the black cavity had suddenly appeared, and that was when the Blue Planet era began. Monsters invaded the world. Those who awakened special abilities became known as heroes. Normally, even the strongest awakened only possessed one talent, but Yang was different. He could now steal 999 different abilities, and he swore revenge against the hero who had left his sister lying in a hospital bed. Looking at the screen, he's startled to see it's already 2:30 in the morning, so he quickly gets up to get ready, since he has to work early the next day. Walking down the hall, he is startled by a figure standing at the bathroom door. In the hallway, he sees a woman leaning against the door, realizing it's his other roommate. Looking closer, he notices she looks very sick and her face is quite red. With his things in hand, he slowly approaches and says hi to the girl, but she doesn't even answer, just runs into the bathroom and asks to use it before him. From the doorway, he just watches the girl vomiting non-stop into the toilet. A moment later, she completely loses her strength and collapses to her knees on the bathroom floor. The next instant, the girl passes out and remains there, unconscious next to the toilet. Worried, he approaches her, asks if she's okay, and wonders if he should help her, but he hesitates at the last second, afraid his help might cause a misunderstanding. Deciding to get help, he knocks on Dingxin's door, apologizing for bothering her so late. Very sleepy, she opens the door yawning and asks why he hasn't gone to bed yet. Pointing to the bathroom, he tells her their other roommate has passed out and asks for her help, but she says to just leave her there, explaining that it's not the first time this has happened. Realizing he's on his own, he understands he'll have to handle the situation himself. Returning to the bathroom, he approaches the girl and tries to wake her up, asking if she can get up. With no other choice, he takes a deep breath and apologizes in advance for what he has to do to help her. As he lifts her into his arms to carry her to her room, a notification appears, detecting an ability in her. At that moment, he is completely surprised to discover that the girl is actually an awakened one. Carrying her to the couch, a floating screen shows the details of her F-rank ability. While she sleeps, he activates his power and says he's going to borrow her ability. With a slight smile, he's now curious to see the result of combining their two abilities. Given the option to merge his two skills, he watches the energies form in each hand. He then accepts the merge command, causing the two spheres of power to rise and combine. The combination finishes, generating a new skill concentrated in the palm of his hand. Looking at the screen, he sees the result is a brain enhancement technique that increases his reasoning. With his new ability, he decides to use deduction to finally find some important evidence on the case. The scene changes to the apartment complex, where our protagonist lives peacefully. Later that night, he's resting in bed when suddenly someone knocks on his bedroom door. Waking up drowsy from the noise, he gets up to see who's calling for him. He opens the door moments later, still looking sleepy and not quite understanding what's going on. To his surprise, it's the woman from the night before. She thanks him and introduces herself as Lin Nai Shui. Taking the clothes, he introduces himself as Yang Shi and says he just did what had to be done. As they talk, he asks if she's feeling well or if she needs any help. Thanking him for his concern, she says she's fine and used to it, telling him not to worry. Hearing her answer, he feels relieved and tells her that's good to know. But just then, a man appears at the door, recognizing the resident and leaving everyone completely surprised. Completely shocked by the scene, the guy can't believe what he's seeing seeing right in front of him, pointing at his friend. He asks how he could be dating behind his back like that without saying anything. The protagonist tells him to stop talking nonsense, explaining that she's actually his roommate. But his friend doesn't care, saying he's so rich it's cruel of him to rent an entire building. Losing his patience, the protagonist walks over and messes up his hair to get him to stop. After recovering, he turns and introduces himself as Fan Peng, the protagonist's co-worker. They then greet each other with a handshake, while the protagonist just watches from a distance. Seizing the moment, he says he's an awakened and can take great pictures for her sometime if she wants. Instantly, the protagonist shoves him away, saying that's enough and they need to go. The scene changes to the large newspaper building where they were heading for another day of work. Once at the office, he analyzes an image on his computer of a hero fighting a giant, dangerous creature. In the image, the hero leaps and delivers a powerful uppercut that hits the creature square on. Right after, he decides to activate his new skill and finally begin the detailed deduction process. Using his power, he starts processing all the images from the fight at high speed inside his mind. After analyzing everything, his eyes widen as he notices a crucial detail no one else had seen before. Focusing on the fight, he realizes the creature's movements seem strangely familiar to him. Back at the desk, his friend nudges him with his knee, getting his attention. He then asks why the protagonist doesn't make a move, since the girl is so beautiful. With a smirk, he warns that if his friend doesn't want her, he'll try his luck himself. Staying calm, the protagonist reiterates that they are just roommates and nothing more. His friend insists, starting to give advice, but a scream interrupts their conversation. Right after the noise, they both run immediately to the window to see what happened outside. Looking out the window, they spot a beam of energy slicing through the air and hitting a nearby building. Then, a giant, one-eyed creature appears in the middle of the city, causing massive destruction. Seeing the danger, people start running and screaming for everyone to get away from the monster quickly. An alert sounds across the city, warning of the monster invasion and the imminent B-level disaster. In the midst of the chaos, a hero lands hard on the ground, shattering the asphalt around his feet. Kicking up dust, his imposing silhouette appears through the smoke, preparing for the great battle to come. Then, the hero Sour and Spicy reveals himself, calling for calm and promising he won't let the city be destroyed. Watching from a distance, a group of civilians recognizes the famous B-rank hero who has come to save them. The hero then comes face to face with the creature, positioning himself for the fight that's about to begin. Analyzing the situation, the protagonist's friend comments on the monster's high defense and dangerous combat skills. But when he turns around, he realizes his friend has vanished, noticing how fast the guy was to escape. Smiling at the opportunity, he gets ready to use his photography skill and finally make some good money. At that moment, a heroine appears, flying, and asks if the hero Sour and Spicy needs her help. With a determined look, she agrees to help her senpai and prepares to jump into action immediately. The scene changes to a live broadcast room with two commentators analyzing the current battle. Instructor Ju comments that the hero is a close combat specialist and was quite arrogant at first. Continuing his analysis, he reveals the hero needs to eat to activate his power, which is why he's always late. Impressed by this information, the other commentator praises the instructor for always knowing things no one else does. A bit embarrassed, the instructor coughs and tells them to continue watching the live broadcast of the battle. Back to the fight, the monster squeezes the hero with its tentacles, applying immense pressure. The hero struggles with all his might, trying desperately to break free from the enemy's hold. Seeing the danger, the heroine screams desperately, begging her senpai to dodge in time. She then charges forward, launching a massive fire blast at the giant, dangerous creature. The blast hits the target dead on, engulfing the entire battlefield in an explosion of flames. Back in the studio, the host says the monster is almost dead, but the instructor disagrees. Explaining his point, he says that monsters are intelligent, and this creature doesn't seem nervous at all. Meanwhile, in the fight, the heroes watch the flames, waiting to see the final result of the powerful attack. But suddenly, the fire begins to extinguish on its own, as if something were snuffing out the flames. To everyone's surprise, the monster emerges completely unharmed, walking out of the smoke without a single scratch. Realizing the creature now has resistance, she asks if he can hold on until the other heroes arrive. Hearing the question, the hero remains silent, looking very thoughtful about what to do in this complicated situation. Going back in time, a person warns him that he's already reached his peak and cannot afford a single defeat. Remembering this, he becomes determined and says he absolutely cannot allow himself to be defeated. Watching everything from a distance, the protagonist follows the fight in silence, analyzing the hero's every move. Determined to turn the tide, the hero takes out a small pill and quickly puts it in his mouth. Seeing this, the protagonist is shocked as he thinks he's seen that medicine somewhere before. Meanwhile, the monster takes advantage of the distraction and manages to trap the heroine with one of its tentacles. Caught in its grip, she screams desperately, begging her senpai to save her from this dangerous situation. In the video he watches, a red-haired heroine is crushed by a monster's tentacles. Next, the monster throws the small creature toward its mouth to devour it for good. Desperate, the creature screams that it doesn't want to die, just as it is about to be completely swallowed by the monster's gaping maw. Suddenly, the monster's eye widens, reacting in surprise to something unexpected. Then, an armored hero appears and manages to rescue the girl, carrying her to safety. Watching the scene, a man slams his hand on the table, celebrating the girl's successful rescue. Excited, the narrator comments that the hero got stronger and surpassed his time limit. Raising his fist, he shouts in celebration that the city's great hero hasn't grown old yet, but his colleague calmly comments that the outcome of that battle was a major surprise to him. At that exact moment, he gets startled and warns that a new enemy has appeared to attack the hero. From the top of a building, a mysterious figure watches the monster, letting the battle continue. With that, the mysterious figure lunges forward and lands a blow that slams the monster against the ground. Taking a direct hit, the monster is engulfed by a massive blast of energy on the spot. With his suit damaged, the hero looks at his hand and wonders if that was all. Right behind him, the monster splits in two, revealing a dangerous new form. Focusing the monster's eye, it begins to release a massive amount of energy to attack, but the hero charges forward and hits the creature dead on with a powerful energy blast. Upon taking the hit, the monster is thrown far away while the hero watches the outcome. Suddenly, the hero coughs up blood, showing that the attack also wounded him. With no strength left to fight, he ends up falling to his knees on the ground, completely exhausted. Seeing the fallen hero, the girl runs toward him, screaming his name in desperation. At that, he makes an expression of pain, trying to gather the strength to stand up again. Beside him, the girl screams in panic and despair, not knowing what to do. Worried, she asks what is happening, but he only replies that he needs to control the power. Shortly after, he smiles and reassures her, saying he just used too much strength in the battle. Witnessing the victory, the people celebrate and cheer the hero's name, thanking him. From afar, Yang Shi observes the defeated monster, thinking about organizing the news when he gets back. At the same instant, he notices something strange about the monster's body and becomes highly suspicious. Looking at the ground, he sees that the defeated creature's body is starting to move. To his surprise, a small one-eyed clone crawls out from inside the fallen body. Seeing the clone, he realizes the creature is coming his way to attack. Analyzing the situation, he concludes that a mental attack might be the monster's weakness. With that, the monster flies off, swearing revenge as soon as it finds a host and absorbs enough energy. Spotting the young man, the creature finds him appetizing and decides he will be its new host, but he just stares at the creature, asking if it came to surrender itself right to him. With a smile, he warns that the monster's ability will now be his. Then, he extends his hands toward the target and fires a powerful mental attack against the clone. Taking a direct hit, the little monster is completely paralyzed in midair, unable to move. Shortly after, the monster is totally immobilized, floating helplessly in front of the young man. From afar, the heroine senses a presence of power and wonders if someone is using abilities. Holding the clone, he explains that the creature's only luck was that his attack wasn't strong. With that, he activates his power and begins the process of extracting the small monster's ability. At the same instant, an energy sphere materializes in the palm of his hand, finalizing the process. Next, a floating window displays the information of the new B-rank ability he just stole. Understanding the power, he realizes he now has an invisible shield covering his entire body. Holding the abilities, he says that the rule about every power having a weakness doesn't apply to him. At that moment, a woman with fiery wings appears and shouts angrily, asking who is there. Hiding himself, he thinks it's not time for them to find out about him yet, so he vanishes. Shortly after, she lands on the ground and takes a deep breath, searching for the presence she felt in the area. Confused, she comments that she felt mental energy, while a figure silently emerges right behind her. Appearing from the shadows, the masked man asks if he is the one she was looking for. Then, she turns toward him and asks if he was the one who used the ability. With his reflection showing in a puddle, he steps on it and calmly confirms that it was indeed him. Questioning the man, she asks if he is a hero, as she has never seen him in the city before. Tossing the clone aside, he says he isn't a hero and only helped finish the job. Looking at the monster on the ground, she is surprised to see it was a jellyfish clone. With that, she realizes he defeated the monster all by himself with impressive ease, but he explains that since he isn't a hero, he can't use his abilities without permission. Trying to leave, he asks to excuse himself, but the heroine grabs his arm. Then, She steps in front of him, blocking the path to keep him from leaving. She shouts that he used his powers illegally and must come to the Hero Association with her. Looking at her, he asks coldly if she really thinks she can stop him. Furious, she says he broke the rules and attacks him using all her power, but he simply catches her fire attack with the tips of his fingers. Snuffing out the flame, he leaves her shocked and completely speechless at what just happened. At that moment, he steps closer and asks if it's now his turn to attack. Terrified, she begs for mercy and asks not to die while he walks away. Alone, he thinks about the hero pill, wondering if others use that drug as well. Holding his mask, he decides he needs to investigate this matter deeper to uncover the truth. Shifting to the city, a train travels along an elevated track at night, crossing between buildings. Sitting in the car, he thinks that now he needs to stop stealing abilities for a while. So he decides he needs to explore and fully understand his new superbrain ability. Besides, he also needs to consolidate all the information he uncovered about the mysterious blue pill. At that moment, a man passes by him in the aisle and asks to get through. Feeling the seat, he notices that the backpack next to him has disappeared. Jumping to his feet, he panics upon realizing that someone just stole his bag. With that, he remembers his suit was inside the backpack and that the thief was that man. Confused, the passengers wonder how he vanished since the train hasn't even reached the station yet. Suspecting an ability, he tries to focus on any clue, like the thief's scent. Then he activates his power and uses his super brain to enhance all of his senses. Using his sense of smell, he tracks the bag's scent to the man, who now has a different appearance. Analyzing the situation, he realizes it isn't invisibility, but rather an instant transformation. With a slight smile, he thinks this free ability will be very useful for his plans. Getting off at the station, the thief walks calmly down the street, unaware that he is being followed. Highly satisfied, he hums to himself, thinking that today's haul was truly massive. Suddenly, he feels a terrifying presence and stops, noticing a dark figure right behind him. Turning his face slowly, he prepares to see who has been following him. Upon seeing the boy, he is shocked and wonders since when he had been tracking him. Panning into a panic, he starts running, screaming that today was a total failure. With that, he runs and enters a public restroom he finds along the way to hide. Arriving right after, the young man tells him to come out, asking if he wants to play hide and seek. But upon opening the door, he discovers the place is completely empty and vacant. Standing outside, he then wonders if the thief escaped into the women's restroom instead. The scene changes. He's now standing in front of a women's restroom, following a lead. He knocks on the door and tells the person to come out, but whoever is inside just calls him a pervert. Since no one obeyed, he simply kicks the door in, forcing the person to finally reveal themselves. On impact, several objects fly out as a voice screams desperately for help against the intruder. With paper on his head, he notices the person's ability is special, as it can even change their voice. Inside, a man dressed as a woman begs for forgiveness, saying it was his first time doing something like this. Looking at the disguise, he comments that it's a shame the ability doesn't change one's appearance and body. Realizing the situation, the thief laments his bad luck and how badly his plan has failed. Then the protagonist throws a purse, saying that this is the one that belongs to the real thief. Terrified, the man hands over the stolen backpack, returning what he had taken from our protagonist. Taking the backpack, he unzips it to check if all his things are still there. He then asks if the thief opened it, but the guy swears up and down that he didn't touch it. Adjusting his glasses, he advises the man to get a job and live a normal life from now on. Very grateful, the thief promises he'll never steal again and is thankful for being spared. But with a cold stare, he asks if he ever said he would actually let him get away with it. Using a mental strike, he paralyzes the thief, who freezes on the spot, completely unresponsive. Right after he steals the ability, commenting that it would be a waste not to take an F-rank power. Testing the new power, his shoes transform and tie themselves in the blink of an eye. Then his entire body is covered by a new suit, showing the result of his complete transformation. Commenting on the skill's convenience, he's approached by police officers who ask if he heard anything. Pointing to the restroom, he confirms he saw a suspicious man go in there, and the guards rush to take action. Watching the thief being taken away, he reflects that some ability users don't deserve their powers. A week passes. We see a taxi parked in front of a building at night. Getting out of the car, he finds his friend eagerly waiting for him outside. His friend greets him, but he asks why he had to come all this way just to talk. Hugging the protagonist, his friend acts mysterious, asking him to guess who they found at that bar. With a mischievous grin, he reveals that his friend's girlfriend, Lin Nai Shui, works as a bar girl. Unfazed, he corrects him, saying she's not his girlfriend and asks why it even matters. Ignoring the response, his friend pulls him inside the bar, saying he'll believe it when he sees it. Once inside, his friend points to a spot, telling them to sit there and watch. On stage, a woman is dancing inside a cage, capturing the entire bar's attention. Continuing her performance, she moves in a way that draws all eyes to the stage. In the middle of her dance, her face shows great surprise as she recognizes someone in the audience. Then she sees the protagonist, wondering why he would be there at that exact moment. Trying to cheer his friend up, he tells him not to be sad and to enjoy the night he's prepared for them. Then he gets on the table and calls some girls over to their private booth. Soon after, 3 women approach, and he introduces them to the protagonist as his good sisters. Introducing his friend, he says this is Yang Shi and asks the ladies if they think he's handsome. The women then sit next to him, complimenting his looks and inviting him to drink with them. Shifting to the booth next door, we see a group of people drinking and talking at their table. Meanwhile, a guy complains that he lost a race to some guy named Gao Zheng because he didn't have his car. Hearing the complaint, his friend tells him not to blame the car, since it was just a racing battle. But the man with braids just laughs, amused by the situation and their conversation. Then the girl from the stage approaches and asks if he can't just be her personal bodyguard. Looking at her, he asks with a smile if she suddenly lost the ability to speak. Meanwhile, the other man comments that it must be tough for a normal person to be restrained by a hero. Showing his irritation, the guy just scoffs, making it clear how annoyed he is by the comment. Suddenly, he slaps the girl, angrily asking what she thinks she's doing. He then throws the bottle on the floor, complaining about the drink while the girl lies on the ground. With a look of disgust, he says that drink isn't worthy of him. Then he pours the rest of the drink on the girl's head, and she screams from the humiliation. Seeing this, the protagonist stands up, but his friend stops him, warning that the guy is dangerous. Ignoring the warning, he just says he's going to the restroom and walks away, leaving his friend behind. Meanwhile, the girl remains on the floor, completely filthy and crying her eyes out over the situation. Sitting on the couch, he warns that she must drink it all to apologize if she wants his forgiveness. At that moment, one of the guys grabs her by the hair and forces her to drink from the bottle, but suddenly, the man is thrown aside by a powerful blow, and no one understands what just happened. Right after, a mysterious figure appears standing in front of the girl, who is still on the floor. In an imposing voice, he says he heard that the son of an important man was here. Completely confused, the bodyguard asks who he is, and calls him an idiot looking to start trouble. Then the masked man says he wants to make a trade directly with boss Liu Yuan. Hearing the proposal, Liu Yuan becomes curious and asks what kind of trade it would be. Noticing his interest, the bodyguard warns that it's getting late and they should leave, but Liu Yuan shoves him hard, telling him to get out and not to interfere with his negotiation. With a look of pure rage on his face, the bodyguard glares at the man who disobeyed him. Getting up, Liu Yuan asks if the masked man really wants to make a trade with him. The bodyguard then holds him back, telling him to sit down and rest because he's already very drunk. With a serious look, he warns Liu Yuan to let him handle the situation with the mysterious man himself. Sitting on the couch with a glass in his hand, the masked man asks if the guard really wants to start a fight. Although he dislikes violence, he warns that he will act if he's prevented from speaking with the boss. Then he stands up, saying the only option will be to beat him until he's completely unconscious. Facing his opponent, the guard accepts the challenge and tells him to bring everything he's got. Wrapping his hands and enveloping himself in energy, he guarantees he'll show him who's going to get beaten. With his hands in flames, he says it's the masked man's unlucky day for messing with the wrong person. Watching from a distance, the protagonist notices his opponent is preparing to use a C-rank fire attack. Meanwhile, the crowd comments on the man's courage for challenging the disciple of an A-rank hero. With a confident smile, the bodyguard charges forward and throws a direct punch at his opponent. Noticing he doesn't dodge, everyone wonders why he's just standing there and what his plan could be. The blow lands squarely, but he stops it with just one hand, asking if that's all he's got. Calling the masked man naive, he boasts that no one has ever been able to handle his special abilities. Right after, he unleashes a massive blast of fire that engulfs the entire area. Terrified, the people scream, thinking he's going to burn his opponent to death with that attack. Engulfed in flames, the masked man remains still, not moving an inch from where he stood. Suddenly, a hand emerges from the middle of the fire, showing he survived the attack. To everyone's surprise, the flames dissipate, revealing he is completely unharmed. Shocked by the outcome, the bodyguard can't believe the man escaped without a single scratch. Immediately after, the masked man extends his hand and launches a direct mental strike at his opponent. Stunned by the attack, the man is paralyzed. his eyes turning white as he shows no reaction. Taking advantage of the paralysis, the masked man hits him with a swift chop to the back of the neck, ending the fight. His eyes rolling back, the bodyguard collapses to the ground, completely unconscious after the blow. Shocked by the scene, Liu Yuan says that he was taken down with a single hit. He then approaches the fallen man and steals his ability, acquiring a new power. Upon analyzing the technique, he sees it's a C-rank power called Fire Fist. Looking at Liu Yuan, he realizes the other men who were with him have already fled and disappeared. In despair, Liu Yuan complains that all those ungrateful men ran off so quickly and abandoned him. Trembling with fear, he asks what the trade is and offers to transfer any amount of money. But the masked man grabs him by the neck, and he begs for his life, asking if he knows who his father is. Unintimidated, he asks what it matters if his father is the famous Ji Sai. Struggling to speak, he warns that if he's killed, his father will definitely not let it slide. Then the masked man tells him not to worry, as he won't kill him, and asks what a trait is. Leaning close to his ear, he whispers and asks if Liu Yuan wishes to have that ability for himself. His eyes wide, he is completely shocked by the proposal, unable to believe what he just heard. Right after the masked man lets him go, leaving him standing there, pondering the offer he received. Still on the ground, he asks if the masked man thinks he's a god who can give whatever he wants. As he leaves, he throws a piece of paper and tells Liu Yuan to go alone to the marked location in 7 days. Outside the bar, his friend calls and complains about how long he's taking, thinking he got held up. On the phone, he explains the bar was too loud and he just stepped out for some fresh air. His friend then invites him to grab a bite, saying he missed a show and that he'll tell him all about it. Looking at a building, he reflects that the plan is going well and he just needs to wait for the bait. The scene changes to the Hero Agency building, where an important meeting is about to begin. In a room, a group of people is watching a video of the fight from the previous night. On the big screen, the video shows the exact moment the masked man prepares to attack the bodyguard. Then, a man asks for their thoughts after watching the entire recording of the confrontation. Analyzing the scene, one of the attendees comments that the masked man's combat ability is B rank or higher. But another man disagrees, saying he wasn't defeated by a physical blow like everyone thought. Recalling the scene, he explains that the final blow was dealt the exact moment he raised his hand. Another participant adds on, asking about the status of the bodyguard's injury analysis report. Upon hearing the question, his eyes widen in shock, as if he's discovered something impossible to believe. Discovering that the bodyguard's ability has vanished, everyone in the room is completely shocked by the news. Meanwhile, the masked man reflects that a big problem seems to be approaching for all of them. Upon learning of the situation, the meeting leader's expression turns to one of pure fury and concern. Intrigued, one of them asks who he is and how he can remove other people's abilities like that. Recalling something, the other says that, as far as he knows, only an S-rank hero can do that. Based on this information, the leader questions if they think the masked man could be that hero. But the man in blue says it's impossible, as that hero is an old man on the verge of death. So they suggest reporting the case to the Hero Association, since they can't handle it on their own. However, another member suggests that instead of reporting him, they should try to recruit him for their team. Agreeing with the idea, the boss tells them to keep the matter secret and dismisses them to think it over. Changing scenes, we see Liu Yuan's mansion, where he is resting after the incident at the bar. Lying in bed, he wonders if he can really have an ability of his own, and what it would be like. Reading the note, he tries to understand what the masked man wants from him in exchange for such an incredible power. Ignoring the consequences, he crumples the paper, determined to accept the proposal no matter what. With a smile, he thinks that in just a few days he'll have an ability and that nothing else matters. Elsewhere, the protagonist and his friend are walking towards a museum for an unexpected visit. As they walk, his friend says he's there to hit on girls, not to see monsters. Pointing to the side, he says he came to see a specific person who is right over there. Looking at the statue, he explains he wanted to write an article about the monster invasion in the city. The camera focuses on the monster's face, showing every detail of the creature that once terrorized the place. In a flashback, we see the monster firing a powerful beam from its mouth, causing massive destruction. Impressed by the scene, the protagonist remarks on how incredibly strong and dangerous that creature was. Imagining the possibilities, he thinks about what would happen if he could steal such a powerful ability. As he tries to get closer, he is stopped by a guard who asks what he's trying to do. Showing his ID, he introduces himself as a reporter who wants to write an article about the invasion. The guard allows him to write, but forbids him from touching the statue under any circumstances. With a discreet glance, he signals his friend, who immediately understands the plan. His friend then distracts the guard, apologizing and asking where he can find a beautiful mutant beast. Taking advantage of the distraction, he touches the statue and prepares to steal the creature's ability. As he steals it, he can feel the ability but realizes it's taking a lot of strength to acquire. After some effort, the ability is finally stolen, and a purple energy begins to envelop him. Suddenly his eyes go wide, surprised by what happened after absorbing the power. Then a screen appears, but it's completely blank, with no information about the new ability. Looking at the screen, he sees the ability is a simple E-rank plasma beam. Completely shocked, he can't believe he only got an E-rank ability from an S-rank monster. Looking at the statue, he theorizes that the power diminished because the monster has been dead for a long time. So he concludes that the ability he stole before kept its rank because it was from a living target. Realizing he won't get anything useful here, he decides to leave since he can't waste any more time. The scene changes to his apartment building in the late afternoon with a beautiful sky. Back home, he examines the 3 orbs he obtained, lamenting that he only got low-rank abilities. Looking at the details, he sees one of them is an F-rank clone that only lasts for 1 minute. Next, he checks the plasma one, the E-rank ability he got from the monster. The last one was a control ability that could increase someone's favorability towards him. Sighing in frustration, he complains that the ability's powers are so weak, it's irritating. But suddenly he wonders if it's possible to separate the orbs, since he can combine them. To test his idea, he picks up the C-rank orb from the bodyguard he defeated at the bar. With the object in his hand, he concentrates and gives the command to try and dismantle the ability. However, the energy orb remains in his hand without any change whatsoever. Deciding not to give up, he tries one more time, concentrating on dismantling the ability. This time the orb cracks and shatters, and the screen confirms the dismantling was successful. To his surprise, the orb transforms into several black cubes scattered across the table. Analyzing the cubes, he discovers they are foundation materials called Level 1 Dark Power. With the cubes in his hand, he wonders if abilities are formed from these small objects. Full of new ideas, he realizes he can actually dismantle an ability orb into its basic form. Holding the cubes, he wonders if he can use them to fuse and enhance another ability he has. Then the fusion command activates, and the ability is successfully enhanced, changing its form. Looking at the screen, he sees the control ability's rank has risen to E level. Holding the new orb, he's surprised and excited to see the ability was actually enhanced. With this discovery, he gets excited about the possibilities he's just opened up for himself. With a confident smile, he wonders if he can now create S-rank abilities using this method. Suddenly, he hears a scream from outside, and someone begging not to be touched. He realizes Liu Yuan has come looking for Lin Naishui right at his building. In the room, a man complains to the girl, saying that all she knows how to do is cry. Sitting on the sofa, he says they didn't intend to lie to her about the situation. At the door, the protagonist watches the girl cry as the argument with her family continues inside the room. Then, her father asks if she would have sent the money if they hadn't lied to her. Her mother explains that her brother needs millions to buy a house, a car, and find a wife. Angrily, she asks if they lied about their father having cancer just to get the money. Crying hard, she vents and asks if they know how depressed she became when she heard the news. Desperate, she explains she had to work day and night at 4 jobs to be able to send the money. But her father says he just wanted to see how much she earns so he wouldn't cut her out of the family inheritance. Outraged, she asks if he intended to sell her to a stranger to get the rest of the money. Then her mother consoles her, saying the man has good values and wouldn't let her suffer. With disdain, she asks where they think the $50,000 she sent came from. Shouting angrily, she reveals that she has to accompany people for drinks, and that's how she earns money. Hearing this revelation, her parents are completely shocked and speechless at what they've just discovered. Standing up, her father accuses her of being shameless and ruining the family's reputation. Threatening to hit her for not taking care of herself, he raises his hand to give her a hard slap. In that instant, the protagonist grabs his wrist, saying she's still his daughter. Surprised by the intrusion, the man glares at him with a look of pure rage and contempt. Then he asks who the young man is, telling him not to meddle where he's not wanted. But her mother feels remorse, and the protagonist decides to give a little help to resolve the situation. Seeing the woman's remorse, he activates his control ability to influence her attitude. Right after, she slaps her husband, yelling at him to stop all the commotion. Yelling at her husband, she asks if his heart is made of stone for making their daughter suffer. Apologizing, the mother hugs her daughter, who cries as she finally feels accepted by her. Defeated, the father says it's all right, and that he'll let the brother get the money on his own. Remembering someone who was sick, he reflects that luckily they realized their mistake in time to fix it. Then he thinks about how, in this world, people care for those they truly truly love. Changing to the train station, she says goodbye to her parents, promising to return for the new year. Waving from the window, her mother tells her to take care of herself and not to do anything foolish again. After the farewell, she thanks him for accompanying her and tells him they should go. Handing her a drink, he says he hopes her brother will grow up and learn to be responsible. With a smile, she asks him to come closer because she wants to tell him a secret. A bit awkwardly, he asks what it is, not understanding what she's planning to do. Then she moves closer and kisses him, leaving him completely surprised and unable to react. Still close to him, she thanks him for helping her with her problems twice. At night, the masked man watches the monster management center, noticing the reinforced security. Seeing a truck approaching, he decides he'll need a special method to get in. Running towards the vehicle, he prepares to jump and grab onto the back. With a leap, he manages to hold onto the back of the truck, his grip strong enough to not fall. Catching his breath, he prepares to climb up and get into the truck without being seen. But suddenly, he comes face to face with something unexpected, not understanding what it is. To his surprise, a girl appears and gestures for him to be quiet. Confused, he realizes she's also trying to break into the monster management center. Even more surprised, he notices the person holding him there is actually a girl. Completely flustered, he says it's a pleasure to meet her and comments on the big coincidence. Annoyed, she complains about her bad luck and says that things here are obtained through one's own power. She then introduces herself as Chian Duo Duo and asks who he is, waiting for his answer. The driver announces they're arriving, and she says she can't get off with him hanging on like that. Yelling for her to hold on tight, he pulls her and jumps off the moving truck. In the air, they fall together, moving away from the truck as it continues on its way. After they land, she asks how long he plans on holding her like that. Annoyed, she pulls him by the cape and says she had no choice but to hug him. Once inside, they find themselves in the monster management area, ready to start their mission. Asking if he's a newbie, she tells him to be careful and calls him senpai. Since he was honest, she allows him to follow her and help with her mission. Observing a monster, she says her boss wanted the white fur from that wolf's chest. With a knife in hand, she prepares to carefully cut the fur so as not to ruin it. Suddenly, she summons a box, showing her special storage ability to the masked man. With a smile, she boasts about her inventory bag, and he regrets not being able to steal her power. After getting the item, he tells her they should hurry to the next management room. As they walk, he takes the opportunity to steal the wolf monster's ability, but suddenly, a security alarm goes off, and she wonders if they've been discovered. A desperate man runs out of a room, yelling that the situation is terrible and dangerous. Crying in fear, he screams that one of the monsters has revived and is on the loose. Hearing the scream, the two turn around in surprise, unsure of what to do in this unexpected situation. Then the monster grabs the man, who screams desperately for help as he's dragged into the darkness. Scared, she asks him to hold her, as her leg is numb and she can't move. Suddenly, a tentacle strikes her from behind, taking the girl completely by surprise. Screaming in pain, she's thrown aside, and he yells her name. Desperate, angry, he uses his ability and launches a fire blast at the monster. Dodging the attack, the monster captures her, and she screams for help, begging him to save her. Noticing some items, he realizes the place has many gold attribute materials he can use to his advantage. With the element in hand, he prepares to use his new shape-shifting ability. Then, several metal blades shoot up from the ground, heading for the tentacles holding her. Dodging the strikes, she manages to break free and escape the monster's grip, falling to the ground. Worried, he runs to her and asks if she's okay, but she just screams in pain. On the ground, she complains that the tentacle was too thick and the blow hurt her badly. Looking at the monster, he says they'll know what it is when they see it up close. Then the creature reveals itself, and a person trapped in its tentacles screams desperately for help. In the darkness, he spots another person on the ground nearby, who also seems to be in trouble. Surprised by the scene, she's in shock, unable to believe what she's seeing right in front of her. Looking at the monster, he braces himself for the battle about to begin. The monster then attacks with its tentacles, forcing them both to prepare to defend themselves. Using his ability, he creates a metal barrier to protect himself from the overhead strike. The tentacle hits the barrier head-on, but it manages to withstand the powerful attack. However, the tentacle keeps pressing, causing the barrier to slowly start shattering. Desperate, she yells that the shield is shrinking and tells him to think of something fast. Afraid of being eaten, she hides behind him, screaming that they're doomed to die. Remembering the fuel tanks, he says this won't work and he needs a plan. Assuring her he'll protect her, he says he has a way, and she asks what the plan is. He then launches a metal blade towards the fuel tanks he saw earlier. At his command, the blade guides several fuel tanks toward the attacking monster. The tanks latch onto the creature's tentacles, which doesn't understand what's happening. Right after, he launches a small spark of fire towards one of the tanks. The tank explodes, causing a chain reaction that engulfs the entire monster in a massive blast. With the explosion, He yells for everyone to run and take the chance to escape. Pulling her by the hand, he guides her along the edge to flee the chaos. But as she looks back, she's startled by something unexpected that suddenly appears. At that moment, an older man appears and delivers a powerful strike with his greatsword. Completely frozen, the two stare at the man, surprised by his sudden appearance. He then accuses them of being thieves and asks if they were the ones who revived the monster. Facing the man, she asks why he's spouting nonsense without knowing anything. Angry, he calls her disrespectful and says he was already traveling the world when she was just a baby. Shouting back, she says he doesn't deserve her respect and glares at him with hatred. Recognizing the name, she remembers he's the hero who defeated an A-rank monster all by himself. In a respectful tone, the masked man greets him, and the hero warns that he'll deal with them later. Then he charges toward the monster, preparing to use his northern sword technique. With a leap, he unleashes a strike that transforms into an energy wolf and hits the monster. Watching the fight, the masked man comments on how destructive and hard to dodge his skills are. Screaming in pain, the monster thrashes and prepares to counterattack the hero who struck it. But the swordsman leaps over the monster and readies his second strike, attacking from above. He then unleashes a dimensional slash, which creates multiple blades and hits the creature at several points. The blow severs the monster's tentacles, and it begins to disintegrate and lose its form. With a determined look, he readies his next attack to finally finish the creature once and for all. He then launches a whirlwind wave slash, engulfing the monster in a cyclone of blades. The final blow hits its mark, and the monster is completely destroyed, splattering blood everywhere. Still panting, he drives his sword into the ground, catching his breath after the intense battle. Turning to them, he says it's now their turn to face his fury. Trying to de-escalate the situation, the masked man assures him they didn't revive the monster on purpose, but the hero tells him to stop lying, saying they're suspects, and he won't believe them. Worried, she asks if he's confident he can beat that crazy old man in a fight. Answering with another question, he says that if he can't, she'll have to fight herself. Quickly denying it, she says she just wanted to lend him some useful gear to help in the battle. Then she shoves him forward, wishing him good luck and explaining that the armor will help. Observing her attitude, he comments on how her personality is a lot like his sister's. Wasting no time, the hero charges and unleashes a direct sword strike at him. With a swift move, he manages to block the attack with his arm, surprising the swordsman. Noticing the defense, he realizes the armor really did block the attack and was very useful. The hero then continues his assault, launching a series of fast and precise strikes with his sword. Grazed by a strike, he activates his super brain ability to heighten his senses in the fight. With the ability active, the hero charges once more, preparing for a new attack. Analyzing the situation, he notices the attack seems slower, but it's still not enough. Seizing the opportunity, the hero lunges with a sword strike, yelling that he's finally found an opening. The masked man then realizes he won't be able to dodge in time, trapped by the imminent blow. But at the last second, he activates his control ability, paralyzing the swordsman with a mental attack. Leaping from above, the old man charges with his blade against the masked man. He's stunned, wondering how the enemy managed to stop his movements like that. At that moment, the masked man seizes the opening and unleashes a blow that sends his opponent flying. Thinking fast, he reflects that he'd be in danger if he couldn't restrain his attacks. Regaining his balance, the man yells that those are just cheap tricks from some common thief. But the masked man is unfazed and simply uses an ability to transform his staff. Soon after, they both charge again, their weapons clashing forcefully in the middle of the hall. Realizing his rival's strength, he notes that his control can restrain him to avoid getting hit. Watching the fight up close, the spectators wonder if he might be the hero, Divine Spear. Hearing the conversation, the masked man internally questions who this Divine Spear could be. Then, his opponent analyzes his moves and says he doesn't seem to be a simple thief. He then asks the others to leave the palace as he wants to speak with him alone. Confused, the girl from the group asks if everyone really has to leave right then. Irritated by the delay, he shouts, asking why they aren't obeying the central director's orders. Finally obeying, they run for the exit while one of them says he'll wait outside. Left alone, the masked man asks why he wanted to talk, and the old man immediately reveals he knows his identity. But he also says the young man has many skills and didn't come here just to steal a hide. Then he gets straight to the point, asking if the masked man came in search of the world's truth. Confused by the question, the hero decides to first find out what he means by that. Soon after, he answers yes, confirming he is there in search of this so-called truth. Laughing at the situation, the old man comments on the passion of youth and agrees to tell him everything. He then reveals that the center's objective is to open the gate to the monster world. Hearing that, the masked man is in shock, questioning what he just said. Going back in time, he says that 15 years ago, the city's gate was successfully opened. Continuing the story, the Heroes Association sent a squad, and he was one of its members. Remembering the mission, he laments that heroes died to protect him and 2 other companions. Pointing to a monitor, he explains that the centers were built in areas of spatial weakness, and to open the gate, he says they just need to keep burning the monsters' bodies. Processing the information, the masked man asks about the so-called revived monster everyone talks about. Finally, he explains that the monsters mutated because of the passage of the white cavity. Explaining the situation, he says that humans are cattle to the monsters and can only win with heroes. Then he turns to leave, telling him he can go and that they are all human. Changing scenes, in an office, a boss and his assistant observe the city through the window. Annoyed, she complains that the old man loves to cause trouble and shouldn't have shared the secret, but the boss replies that others would find out anyway, since they aren't strong enough. With that, the assistant reveals that she was the one who sent the video from headquarters to resolve the situation. With more than 25 members online, she says they can already start the vote. Then the boss turns to the screen and announces that the branch will report its current condition. With his eyes closed, he declares that the meeting among everyone can finally officially begin. Next, she adds by saying they will decide whether to reveal the secret to other organizations. Cutting to a hospital room, the masked man talks to a girl lying in bed. Sitting beside her, he says that the night before, he discovered a very cruel truth about the world. Returning to the building's exit, the group that left earlier waits for news outside. Seeing the masked man walk out alone, they wonder what happened to the old man inside. Worried, the girl from the group approaches him and asks if he is feeling all right. He just turns his face away, avoiding her question for a brief moment. Saying he is fine, he asks her to look into his eyes and activates a control ability. Looking into her eyes, he activates the control and slowly brings his face closer to hers. At the exact same instant, her mind falls under the complete dominance of his special ability. Then he commands her to completely forget about his fire and gold abilities, telling her to remember that she bought armor from him and now owes $10,000. Right after, he snaps his fingers in the air to seal the command in the girl's mind. Coming out of the trance, her expression changes completely, and she looks visibly embarrassed. Saying everything is fine, she makes up an excuse and runs away from there in a huge hurry. Returning to the hospital, he comments to the patient that the other girl looks like her. Caressing her face, he promises he will find a way to wake her up before his revenge. Shifting to his room, the scene shows the building where he is during the night. Sitting at his desk, he analyzes a small white object he holds between his fingers. Then he activates his transmutation ability, transforming the object into a metal ring. Right after, he shows the ring up close, displaying its shape and symbol. Next, he picks up a vial with a liquid, which is an ability medicine. Bringing the 2 items together, he is going to use them to lie about his true powers to others. Creating a new identity, he reveals the mask he is going to wear, with the codename Snake. At the same instant, he begins putting the new disguise on his face for the next mission. Activating an ability, his suit completely transforms, and he names the new look Snake. Then he explains that this ability is different from his old one, but he can still use flames. Revealing his plans, he says their organization was formed to judge heroes who are unworthy. And to finish up, he warns that the hiring fee for the services will be paid by someone else. Arriving at an industrial complex that seems abandoned during the day. Walking through a warehouse, he finds a man sleeping on the floor. Then he pokes the guy with his foot and tells him to get up. Startled, the man wakes up and quickly recognizes his superior, apologizing. Yuji says he is glad he showed up, showing confidence. Kneeling down, the young man begs for power, offering anything in return. But Yuji simply kicks the man away with absolutely no interest. Right after, he says that obtaining an ability is easy, asking the man to look at him. Using his control technique, he tries to dominate the young man's mind. Under his command, he orders the man to tell him everything about the drug. To his surprise, the target just stands there with blank eyes. Without understanding, Yuji wonders what went wrong with his ability. He then tests it again, ordering Liu Yuan to slap himself. Upon realizing the failure, he questions whether Liu Yuan already possesses an ability. Finally, he uses a mental strike by directly touching the guy's forehead. Remembering that he didn't react at the bar, Yuji decides to investigate if he has power, so he places his hand on the young man's back to begin the process. At the same instant, a notification confirms the theft, leaving him surprised by the result. Analyzing the screen, he sees it is a rank A ability that revives the user once. Shocked, he confirms that the young man had a rank A ability, something very rare. Considering the power a trump card, he says he won't treat Liu Yuan poorly after the theft. Right after, he prepares to transfer a power he stole from another creature. With that, Liu Yuan wakes up confused and begs again for him to give him an ability. Calm Calmly, Yuji just tells him to look at the ring on his finger. Showing the ring, he explains that the object is used to steal other people's abilities. Next, he reveals a blue vial, the medicine that grants powers to normal people. Tossing the vial, he tells Liu Yuan to drink it and find out if it's true. Despite his doubt, he decides to risk it all and accepts the offer right away. So, without thinking twice, he downs the vial and drinks all the liquid. Right after, the empty container slips from his hand and shatters on the floor. Feeling a terrible pain, his eyes widen and he screams toward Yuji. Changing scenes, a young man was kneeling desperately in the rain before that same figure. With that, Yuji says that he will soon discover the incredible feeling of having an ability. Screaming that his body is on fire, Liu Yuan begins to transform. Watching the scene, Yuji reveals that he activated his power core, not the medicine. At the same instant, his ears change shape, becoming pointed and covered in white fur. Right after, his hands change too, growing sharp claws on his fingers. With the transformation complete, he roars loudly and wonders if that is really him. Yuji then explains that it is a lineage ability, a werewolf transformation. Impressed, he compares his form to his brother's and asks who is stronger. In response, Yuji informs him that his brother is rank A while he is only rank E. Trying to calm him down, he says that because he is new, they could only give him a rank F medicine. Hearing this, the werewolf makes a crying face, looking like a puppy. He then adds that because of his reputation, they bumped the level up to rank E. With that logic, he realizes that one day he might become stronger than his father. Grabbing his superior, he begs for a rank A medicine, calling the man father. Then he suggests calling him Godfather, but Yuji interrupts him, explaining the rules. With that, he asks about the organization, and Yuji reveals its name and leadership structure. Introducing himself, he reveals he is Yuji, one of the organization's 12 powerful managers. Impressed, Liu Yuan questions how strong their boss must truly be, but Yuji forbids him from speculating, saying the leader is a mysterious figure. Then the young man asks what the fastest way to earn credit in the organization is. He replies that it is by completing missions, and hands him a very specific task right away. Using his identity, he must find out everything about the mysterious blue pill that appeared. Not understanding, he asks what that is, and Yuji explains it is an enhancement item. With his eyes shining, he comments that enhancing abilities sounds like a great idea for everyone. Taking a hit, he hears that a hero has already hurt innocents because of the pill. Already turning back into human form, he asks who the hero was that did that. Yuji then reveals it was his company's rank A hero, Bing Chuan. Shocked, he shouts that the hero's name is Li Kan Yang and calls him trash. As a reward, he promises to give him a rank D medicine once the mission is completed. Already on his way out, he turns around and says he forgot to mention one last detail. Warning him about the deadline, he reveals that the ability he gave him lasts for only 1 week. Completely desperate, the young man screams in panic upon hearing the terrible news. Changing scenes, a young man walks calmly through the city, a drink in his hand. Stopping in front of a mural, he notices a flyer posted on the wall. Reading the poster, he sees a wanted ad for Yuji, the masked man. Recognizing the figure, he spits out his drink and gets an earful. In a quick flashback, his boss yells, asking what he was doing. Leaving the area, he comments that he didn't expect this from Qian Duo. Turning into an alley, he's startled to see the girl herself standing just ahead. She then turns and looks in his direction with a very serious expression. Hiding behind the wall, he decides to watch the situation more carefully. He sees the girl cornered by 2 men, asking what they want. In a threatening tone, one of them tells the girl to return their master's sword. She plays dumb, saying she doesn't know anything and has no money. At that, the aggressor yells that she tricked them to get the demon sword Muramasa. Hearing the name, he's surprised the girl has the legendary weapon. Realizing the truth, the girl understands the sword is a very valuable item. Taking a fan-like object from her bag, she prepares to counter the attack. Feigning innocence, she says she's never heard of it and that they have her confused with someone else. From behind the wall, the young man realizes she's a terrible liar and has no intention of returning it. Just then, another girl appears and says that if that's the case, they should attack her. Immediately, the man lunges forward with a swift strike, preparing a direct attack on the girl. Meanwhile, his partner makes a hand sign and prepares to use his ability. Seeing this, the observer is shocked to realize they are both ability users. But the girl says she's not that weak and leaps, using her fan to defend herself. With a smile, she reveals she possesses a rank B weapon, the Weasel Fan. Then she swings her weapon with force, sending the 2 of them flying away. The impact of the blow sends both attackers flying violently backward. Floating Turning away, she yells that she never returns things she manages to take from others. Standing there, the girl in the uniform just watches the escape with a look of contempt. Soon after, her hand becomes enveloped in a cold, intense energy. Revealing her power, she transforms into the Snow Queen, a rank A ability. Floating in the air, the girl is startled to realize it has suddenly started to snow. Analyzing the scene, the young man realizes the situation has just gotten much more serious. At that point, he decides to intervene in the battle and quickly activates his transformation ability. Flying at high speed, the Snow Queen charges her opponent with a flurry of strikes. With a determined look, she shouts as she prepares her powerful freezing attack technique. Then she unleashes a massive blast of ice towards the fleeing girl. At the last second, Yuji suddenly appears and desperately screams the girl's name. Meanwhile, a reporter announces the user battle, calling for help from any nearby heroes. Her face panicked. The girl screams as she sees the ice attack coming. Caught in the blast, she's thrown backward, screaming in pain and fear. Slamming hard against a wall of ice, she complains that the impact really hurt. Facing her, the queen says that now she will definitely return what doesn't belong to her. With a smirk, the girl shows 2 knives and asks which one she lost. Realizing she's being mocked, the queen narrows her eyes with an expression of pure rage. Immediately, she begins to freeze the girl's feet to the ground with her ability. Threatening her opponent, she warns that she'll freeze and shatter her legs next. Holding the sword, she says she's not foolish enough to return such a valuable item. Right after, she throws the weapon towards Yuji, giving it to him as a gift. Catching the sword, he thanks Duo for seeing him earlier and helping out. Then he says the sword is broken, and nobody would want an item like that. She explains that she thought the same thing, but was chased because of it soon after. Noticing his partner, the queen gets angry and orders everyone to go after the masked man. Surrounded by enemies, Yuji stands still, holding the broken sword without reacting. At that, one of the ninjas lunges and strikes at him without hesitation. Holding the weapon, he realizes it's absorbing all of his mental energy. Startled, he yells that he can no longer control his body's movements. Then his body moves on its own, effortlessly dodging all the attacks. Seeing his strike fail, the ninja is completely shocked by the unexpected scene. Completely confused, Yuji wonders what the hell is happening. Soon after, another enemy rushes at him, yelling for him to die. Moving on its own, his body dodges again, ducking automatically. In that same instant, the sword begins to release an even more powerful energy. Floating in the air, he unleashes a single gigantic strike towards the enemy. From a distance, the queen recognizes the power and shouts the demon sword's name. Then the massive attack flies across the sky and disappears completely into the distant horizon. Fallen on the ground, the ninja begs for help, but Yuji just stares at him. Next, a window appears, confirming that he has stolen a new ability. Realizing his mental energy is depleting, he warns that he can't hold on any longer. Seizing the chance, the queen furiously shouts and launches a shower of freezing strikes at him. Realizing he has no way out, he says that today he'll have to use the rebirth ability. Suddenly, an immense green energy barrier appears, to everyone's surprise. Hitting the protection, the ice crystals shatter in midair instantly. Surprised by the technique, he wonders if that's really a breathing barrier. With the arrival of reinforcements, the 2 girls react with expressions of pure surprise. At that moment, 2 warriors appear, and one of them accuses the group of causing trouble there. Facing the newcomer, the queen says they just want their things back, but Duo retorts that the sword was a fair trade with her master. Seeing the situation worsen, the queen decides the best choice is to plan an escape. Suddenly, an ice crystal forms on Duo's foot, trapping her. Seeing this, the warrior says he can spare the girl if the queen returns the item. With a smile, he warns that he doesn't plan on letting anyone leave that city alive. Without a word, the queen just stares at him with a very serious expression. Then he tells his partner to test Yuji's abilities, but not to overdo it. Right after, his partner charges forward to attack, saying he's going to teach the little brother a lesson. Parrying the blow, the warrior hits the sword's blade with a direct punch. The impact throws Yuji far back against the alley wall. Seeing this, Duo desperately screams the name of her great friend, Yuji. Seizing the chance, the queen says that if that's the case, he can die right now. Then she launches her absolute zero attack at the completely defenseless girl, but her partner intervenes, destroying the ice crystals with a sword strike. Watching her attack get blocked, the queen stares at the green energy barrier. Surprised, she sees that her technique couldn't get through the warrior's strong defense. In the same instant, the ice crashes against the barrier and shatters completely. Shocked, Duo sees that her enemy wasn't hit by the powerful earlier blow. Then he explains that it was just an illusion and she fled, but she's nearby. Looking for him, the girl finds Yuji collapsed on the ground, completely exhausted. Sitting there, he complains that the sword weakened him, draining all his energy. Then he wonders if he can steal the sword's ability, since it's a weapon. Touching the weapon, a notification confirms he has stolen a new ability. Right after, the system informs him that he has obtained dark power cubes from the sword. Analyzing the cubes, he realizes they're a new source of power for him. With several cubes on the ground, he says he didn't expect so many, but it makes sense, so he decides which skill to upgrade to fight the demon dragon. Looking at his options, he finds the metallic transformation skill and makes his choice. Using the power cubes, he begins the process of upgrading the chosen skill. With the evolution, the skill ascends to rank A and becomes metal control. Feeling the new power, he stands up and faces his enemies with more confidence. Down below, the Ice Queen notices a strange movement coming from that direction. On top of the wall, he says that he can now feel the metals everywhere. With his new power, he finally says he can fight the strongest. Observing the ice attacks, he prepares to show off his new ability. Raising his hand, he begins to control his enemies' attacks with his mind. Then he stops the attacks and transforms them into a spinning shield in front of him. Hit by her own attacks, the queen screams as she's thrown back. Furious, she curses her enemy for using her own power against her. Controlling the pieces of ice, he spins them rapidly to form a large shield. Completely shocked, the Ice Queen wonders how that could be possible. Soon after, he dispels the shield and launches several energy bands at his enemy. Trapping the queen, he tells her to calm down, saying he'll treat the girls gently. As she asks what he's going to do, he slowly moves his hand closer. In that instant, he touches her and successfully begins to steal her ability. To confirm, the system screen displays the theft of the rank A skill. Analyzing the new power, he's surprised to find it's a summoning ability. Back on the ground, he supports the girl in the uniform, who is about to faint. On the corner, the two warriors watch the scene from a distance with great attention. Noticing the change, one of them asks why his energy feels different now. Carrying the girl, he says she's the Snow Queen and he has already taken care of her. Scoffing at the situation, the warrior doubts he could actually beat the queen. Confident, he says they can fight if they doubt him and asks who will be first. With a provocative tone, he then offers a second option to his opponents. Facing the two, he asks if they'd rather just attack him together at once. Live on the scene, a reporter announces that a man wants to fight two rank A heroes. Commenting on the news, he says the demon dragon would win with one hand tied behind his back. Excited, the reporter says he's going to broadcast the incredible scene that's about to unfold, but the warrior refuses, saying that fighting as a pair would mean losing his composure as a hero. With a mocking tone, Yuji says it's a shame because it would have been exciting. Chatting, they say that to defeat an opponent, you need to understand them very well. Warning his partner, he says to be careful of his ring and his abilities. Confident, the swordsman says he'll test if he's as strong as he claims to be. From a distance, he warns that if he's defeated, the demon dragon will join the fight. With a hand gesture, Yuji beckons him to fight without saying a word. Then the swordsman charges with a sword strike, creating a massive energy attack. Meanwhile, Yuji creates a fire barrier to protect himself from the blow. With the clash of powers, a huge explosion erupts in the middle of the battlefield. Through the smoke, he emerges behind his opponent and prepares a surprise attack. In that same instant, the two trade sword blows with extreme speed and force. With their swords clashing, he glares at his opponent with a very serious expression. Noticing the attempt to control it, he yells that it's impossible to dominate his sword like that. With the force of the blow, Yuji is thrown backward with great impact. Sliding across the ground, he struggles to regain his balance after being pushed back. Seeing the sword isn't made of metal, he realizes he can't win head-on, so he decides he needs to evolve a skill to defeat both opponents quickly. Clenching his fist, he begins to absorb energy to strengthen one of his powers. With the upgrade, his control ability rises to rank A, gaining new functions. Holding his new power, he assures himself he won't use it for shameful things. Impatient, the swordsman shouts, asking if he still plans to fight or if he's just going to stand there. Telling his opponent to be calm, he says not to rush while he prepares his technique. In that instant, the lenses of his glasses gleam, activating his new mental ability. Caught by the power, the swordsman becomes confused, his mind completely shaken. In an illusion, he sees a woman asking if he's really going to attack her there. Confused by the vision, he calls out to his sister, completely paralyzed by her image. At that, the woman's hand slowly approaches his face, leaving him even more shaken. Snapping out of the trance, he refuses to attack and diverts the blow at the last second. With the illusion broken, Yuji is left holding just a few shards of glass in the air. Shocked, the swordsman realizes his opponent is a dual-type ability user. Saying Saying it's too late, he lunges for a final blow against his paralyzed opponent. On his knees, he explains that he can't bring himself to attack the image of his deceased sister. In the crowd, everyone is stunned by the defeat, wondering who will fight him now. Analyzing the scene, the reporter says he was caught by a powerful mental attack. Confirming the victory, he explains that the swordsman's trembling hands sealed the final outcome. Meanwhile, Duo celebrates, remembering that if he had died, he wouldn't have paid his debt. Suddenly, he sneezes and wonders who the hell is talking bad about him right now. Congratulating his partner, the demon dragon says he'll take over the rest of the fight now. Warning of the danger, he explains not to look directly into the powerful enemy's eyes. Finally, he asks if the demon dragon has decided to enter the battle against him for real. Staring at his opponent, his eyes glow with a dark and very intense energy. Saying the fight holds great meaning, he then proposes a bet to his rival. Curious, Yuji asks what he would like to bet on this fight. He then proposes that the loser reveals the secret of the mysterious ring on his hand. Showing the ring, he accepts the bet and tells the dragon to come and get it if he can. At that, the demon dragon charges with a swift blow, flying toward his opponent. Seeing the speed, he realizes he's much faster than the swordsman from before. To defend himself, he creates an ice barrier and blocks the enemy's direct attack, but the dragon deftly dodges, bypassing the defense and continuing its rapid assault. Reacting at the last second, he lands a direct hit on his rival's chest. With the impact, his body is thrown upward, flying without any control. Watching the scene, the reporter yells that he can't keep up with the dragon's speed. A moment later, his body slams into the wall, causing a huge explosion. With a smile, he says that even for a dual type, his rival is nothing. Rising from the rubble, he faces his opponent with a look of pure determination. Coughing lightly, he prepares to continue the battle, despite being at a disadvantage. Analyzing the enemy, he realizes the dragon is fast and has high defense. With a smirk, the dragon praises him, saying his opponent's bones are tough. Extending his hand, he tries to use his control ability to affect the enemy. Caught by the technique, he is shocked to see his body invaded by the illusion. In it, a man begs for help, saying he's injured and needs to be saved. Disgusted, he shouts that the enemy dares to transform into his little brother to trick him. With his body changing, his hands begin to transform, gaining sharp claws. He then assumes his earth dragon form, unleashing immense power. With his mask cracked, Yuji realizes his illusion failed and only angered his opponent. Impressed, the reporter announces that the masked man forced the dragon's second transformation. Screaming, "Die!" he charges forward with a devastating attack, leaping at his enemy. In response, Yuji creates a defense of metal spikes to block the attack. Floating, he asks if the enemy thinks mere metal spikes can stop him. With a smirk, he says the enemy has turned into a drill and challenges him to give chase. Using a metal plate, he flies away as the drill tears through the ground. Enraged, the dragon shouts, asking if he really thinks he can escape his power. At that moment, he launches several metal chains to trap the enemy in midair. Caught by the chains, the dragon is completely immobilized and unable to move. Smirking, he asks if the enemy has forgotten about his powerful dark flames. He then unleashes a large amount of flames, starting to melt the chains. Worried, the reporter says the flames can easily melt metal, but Duo scolds him, saying his friend is strong and wouldn't do anything useless. To his surprise, the dragon realizes the flames can't melt the chains. Seeing his plan succeed, he says the chain's resistance is very high. While the enemy is distracted, several cars begin to float in the air around them. Poles, cars, and other metal objects merge, forming a giant structure. Completely shocked, the demon dragon wonders what that thing in the sky is. Revealing his technique, he creates an immense metal cube to crush his opponent. With a wave of his hand, he orders the cube to fall like a titan's fist. Immediately, the gigantic metal structure begins to plummet from the sky at high speed. Seeing the scene, people on the street start screaming and running for their lives in desperation. Facing death, the demon dragon wonders if this is his end. Shortly after, the cube smashes into the ground, causing a devastating explosion. As the dust settles, the reporter wonders if the demon dragon survived the attack. In the crowd, people doubt he's still alive after that hit. From atop a building, a white-haired man watches the scene intently. With his eyes glowing, he fires a beam of energy towards the cube. The attack freezes the entire metal structure, covering it completely in a layer of ice. Happily, a young man shouts that the rank A hero, Ji Zhejiangxiang, has saved them. Inside the frozen cube, the swordsman supports his partner, who is gravely injured. Ashamed, he says he barely survived by using the barrier and has embarrassed the company. Arriving on the scene, the hero says the important thing is that they managed to survive. Hidden, a red-haired girl asks if he'll need her help. With his partner unconscious, he asks the hero to take good care of the demon dragon. The scene changes to a young young man in an apartment, tending to his wounds. He sprays medicine on his stomach to relieve the pain from the injury he sustained. Sitting on the couch, he complains about the dragon's strength, saying he didn't pull any punches. Reflecting on the mission, he says he now needs to focus on investigating the pill. In a flashback, his other identity appears, recalling the ongoing plan. He thinks about going to an event to find the other hero, Spicy Acid. Decided, he says he can't share the rent anymore, so he won't get anyone else involved. Suddenly, a woman enters and surprises him, and he screams in shock at seeing her there. Noticing the smell, she asks what he was doing with so many medicines in the living room. Suspiciously, she stares at him with an expression that shows she didn't believe his excuse. Nervously, he says he needs to tell everyone in the house something important. Announcing his decision, he reveals he's moving out, leaving everyone completely shocked. He explains that, as a man, it's inconvenient to live with them, and he has money now. One of the girls asks about Sister Nai Shui, making the other one jealous. Desperately, he denies any involvement with her, saying nothing happened between them. Seeing there's nothing more to be done, they accept his decision and exchange contact information. With a smile, he says he'll pay for dinner as a farewell meal. Hearing that word, the girls get angry, and a dark energy surrounds them. Instantly, he realizes he said something terribly wrong and panics internally. Trying to calm the situation, he says it would be better if they all went to dinner together. Angrily, she says Nai Shui is beautiful and takes care of him, asking why he treats her so badly. With a smile, the other girl tells him to sort things out with Nai Shui before dinner. Alone, he admits he lied about his feelings, but doesn't want to involve her in danger. Mustering his courage, he knocks on her bedroom door to talk to the girl once and for all. From inside, she says the door is open, and he can come in any time. Entering the room, he finds her lying on the bed with a very sad look. Awkwardly, he approaches and apologizes for what happened in the living room. Angrily, she asks why he's apologizing if there's nothing between them. She then accuses him of disliking her past, making him even more nervous. Desperately, he says it's a misunderstanding, but she asks why he scorns her. Trying to calm her down, he says they can just be friends, but she confronts him about it. In a flashback, he remembers her family problems and her need for security. He also recalls her past as a dancer, which left her very insecure. Thinking of her, he sees her as a porcelain doll, too fragile and delicate. Making a decision, he says that maybe she's right about him after all. Sitting on the bed, he admits he was hasty in thinking they loved each other. Not wanting him to be a stranger, she asks him to start by being her boyfriend. With a sigh, he finally agrees to her proposal, accepting the girl's request. The scene changes to a blue-haired man drinking and celebrating at a party. Watching from afar, Liu Yuan complains about the money spent on the Godfather's mission. Taking advantage of the distraction, he starts searching the man, looking for any suspicious items. In one of the pockets, he finds a strange box and wonders what it is. Waking up, the man asks him what he's doing there with him. Playing it cool, he says he was just looking for a lighter to light his cigarette. Confused, the hero asks where the girls who were at the party with them are. Whispering in his ear, Liu Yuan says the girls are waiting to serve him. On a dark, silent night, the two walk together down an isolated alley. Suddenly, the hero starts laughing, asking them to stop touching him like that. Tossing everything aside, he desperately searches for the box he found earlier. With a glint in his eye, he celebrates upon finally finding the object in his hands. Opening the box, he smells a strange but very sweet scent coming from inside. Fascinated by the aroma, he says the smell makes him want to eat it. But before he does anything, he yells to wait, noticing something strange. Looking at the object, he's shocked to recognize the famous blue pill he was looking for. Sitting alone, he screams in despair as he realizes what just happened. Startled, he wonders if Li Kanyang was always that energetic. Picking up one of the pills, he examines the object more carefully in his hands. Determined, he decides he'll just steal one and hide it to use as evidence. Knocking on the door, he asks if everyone inside is okay after the noise. Opening the door, he finds the hero covered in a strange substance. Behind him, he sees a woman lying on the floor, completely lifeless and still. Shocked by the scene, he asks if the girl lying there is dead. The hero casually confirms that she is, and prepares to leave the room. Telling him not to worry, he offers to call the company and handle everything. Waving goodbye, he tells the hero to wait for backup to arrive soon. Relieved, he says he was almost exposed and would have died if they had discovered the plan. In a garage, the hero approaches his car with an angry expression. With a brick in his hand, he gets ready to smash something inside the vehicle. Enraged, he smashes open a secret compartment and finds several blue pills inside. Furious, he yells that he can't control his strength anymore after taking the pill. Taking a deep breath, he tries to calm himself down to control his anger and his powers. Looking at the box, he examines the remaining pills inside the compartment. Suddenly, he notices that one of the pills is missing and wonders why. Shrugging it off, he says that one more or less success won't make a difference. Getting into the car, he prepares to leave the garage and move forward with his plans. Back at the apartment, the windows suddenly freeze over with the queen's presence. Shivering, he says he's freezing and curls up to stay warm. Startled, the girl asks if her master is okay, but he tells her to stay back. With a smile, she tells him not to worry, as the temperature will only drop a little. Complaining, he says this isn't a little and remembers his ability. Using his power, he creates a small flame in his hand to warm himself up. Seeing the fire, she asks to come closer, saying she likes warm things. With a smile, she says her master is amazing for being able to create fire. Relieved, he thinks that the cold air is a passive effect, which is lucky. Looking at him, she says that her master's body is also very warm. Suddenly, she hugs him from behind, complaining about the cold and calling him a brat. Blushing, he says he'll let it slide just because she's cute. Grabbing the blanket, he gets ready to cover them both so they can warm up together. Then, he warns her that this is a one-time thing and there won't be a next time. Scene change. A new day begins in the city, with the sun shining brightly. Arriving at the event, he sees a huge poster of the hero picric acid prominently displayed. In the middle of the crowd, fans are screaming and declaring their love for their great idol. In disguise, he joins the fans, holding a sign to get closer to the hero. Getting crushed, he yells for them to stop stepping on him and pulling his hair. On stage, the host announces that the hero is ready and asks if everyone else is. With a smile, she asks everyone to scream even louder for their idol. Answering her call, the audience goes wild, chanting the hero's name over and over. With a burst of confetti, the hero finally appears on stage for his audience. Declaring that they are safe, he strikes a pose, showing off his suit to everyone. With his fists clenched, he promises that all danger will be crushed by him. Hearing this, the crowd cheers and raises their arms, celebrating the hero's presence. Getting pushed, he tells them to stop, but ends up being shoved forward accidentally. Falling onto the stage, he loses his balance and stumbles towards the hero, calling for help. Reaching out his hand, he tries to steady himself, but ends up falling on top of the hero. On impact, they both fall to the ground, to everyone's surprise. Catching the young man, the hero tells him to be careful and says, "I've got you." With his eyes shining, he apologizes for his carelessness and quickly gets up. Shaking hands, he introduces himself as Yang Shi and thanks the hero for his help. Taking advantage of the handshake, he activates an ability, passing something to the hero. With a smile, he reveals himself as a fan and prepares for the next step. Scene change. A hero's fan meeting finally ends, with very few people left. Leaving the venue, the hero comments to his assistant that the job is finally over and that the meet and greet was terrible. Walking to the van, he complains that he feels tired and dirty after greeting so many people. Once inside the car, he tells her to go eat ahead of him as he needs to take a nap. Hearing this, she asks with concern if he can handle the pace with another commitment. He replies that he needs the free time to celebrate his daughter's birthday over the weekend. Alone in the car, he stresses about his debts and considers gambling again. But a moment later, he shakes his head, telling himself he can't do it. Suddenly, Yuji appears at the window, asking if it isn't tiring to live such a draining life. Completely shocked, the hero recognizes him and desperately asks how he managed to get there. The masked man then shows an orb, explaining that he can track him because of that object in his body. Getting into the vehicle, he tells him to calm down, assuring him he only came to ask a few questions. As the hero tries to argue, Yuji interrupts him and tells him to look into his eyes. Upon facing the masked man, a mind control interface appears, activating a hypnotic ability against him. Instantly, the hero's eyes widen, showing he's been completely caught by the power. Entering the hero's mind, Yuji wonders if this is his spiritual and mental world. Looking up, he observes several floating screens, each displaying a different fragment of his memories. Analyzing everything, he realizes this is the past and starts searching for the blue memory pill. Suddenly, a specific memory stands out, showing a man with a distorted face holding the item. Upon seeing the pill, he recognizes it instantly and wonders who this mysterious person could be. Inside the memory, the man offers the item, promising he will get his success and his family back. Desperate, the hero tries to grab the pill, but the man pulls it away, demanding information in return. Confused, the hero asks what kind of information he needs to provide to get the power. The man in the top hat then reveals he wants to know all the dark secrets of other heroes. Seeing this scene, Yuji finally understands that the hero sold out his colleagues in exchange for power. Touching the memory, he begins to process how that exchange for dirty information actually happened. With his hand on the screen, he continues to absorb all the details of their secret negotiation. Soon after, he concludes that they met several times to continue making these kinds of exchanges. In another memory, the man asks if he knows about a new ability user named Yu-Ji. The hero angrily confirms, saying that he defeated Demon Dragon and the Wanderer Swordsman. The mysterious man then asks him to tell him everything he knows about the secret of his ability. Flashing back to the memory, the scene shows a blue car parked in a dark, empty garage. In that conversation, the hero reveals that Yu-Ji erases abilities, but that he's never shown his face. Hearing this, the mysterious man finds the information interesting and thinks it over. Shortly after, he hands over a bag with several blue pills as payment for the valuable information. After that, he orders the hero to gather information at his own daughter's birthday party. Coming out of the memory, Yu-Ji understands the plan is to find weaknesses to corrupt and control everyone. Still thinking about it, he tries to understand the true purpose behind so much control. Back in reality, the hero awakens and desperately shouts that a true hero is forgiving. Confused by everything, he looks to the side and asks where Yu-Ji could have gone. Changing scenes, Liu Yuan is waiting outside, complaining about how long his godfather is taking. While waiting, he flails around, saying he's going to be eaten alive by the mosquitoes. Just then, a shadowy figure appears, asking what he's talking about to himself like that. Seeing who it is, he runs relieved towards his godfather, saying he's been waiting for a long time. Getting closer, he shows him a box, saying he finally managed to get it from Li Kanyang for him. Upon taking the item, Yuji confirms the blue pill is identical to the one from his memory. Shocked, Liu Yuan asks if it was because of the pill that Li Kanyang accidentally killed someone. Yuji then explains that corrupt heroes seeking power and fame don't care about the side effects. At that, he asks the boy what he thinks a true hero really is. Hearing the question, his expression turns serious, understanding the importance of that moment for him. With conviction, he replies that a hero's duty is to save humanity, not betray their beliefs. Hearing the answer, Yuji congratulates him and informs him that he's earned a D-rank potion. He then tosses a vial with a red liquid to the boy, who watches it fall. Holding the item, he complains loudly, completely disappointed that it's only D-rank. Yuji advises him to raise his level gradually, but the boy shouts that he accepts. Thanking his godfather, he drinks the entire contents of the vial at once, thinking the color is pretty. Complaining about the taste, he says it's like ketchup, but Yuji claims it's just his imagination. Then, a system interface appears, detailing the new werewolf ability he will receive. Confused, Liu Yuan asks why he hasn't transformed, and his godfather explains it hasn't activated. Then, raising a finger, he suggests that maybe a little warm-up is needed for absorption. Startled by the suggestion, he asks his godfather what he really intends to do now. Without warning, he lunges forward and lands a direct blow to the boy's face, starting the forced training. Lying on the ground, he screams in pain, while Yuji says he must be merciless to make him stronger. Throughout the night, his screams continue, begging his godfather to stop and pleading not to hit his face. After the training, he tells his godfather that his ability has improved, and he feels stronger. Hearing that, Yuji just tells him to keep his ability under wraps for now, without showing it off. Then he asks if it's not tiring for his body to maintain that state of transformation. Returning to normal, Liu Yuan announces he has de-transformed, receiving new instructions about the blue pill and its users. With a smile, he thanks him for the concern and prepares to receive his next mission. At that, Yuji asks him to gather information on heroes who do wrong and dirty things. Confused, he asks if the organization is planning to recruit more people to join the team. Getting on his board, Yuji explains that they are just raw material for the secret organization. Surprised, he questions if the organization plans to absorb and take the abilities of all these heroes. Confirming his suspicion, Yuji says he must work hard to get a C-rank ability. Discouraged by the news, he shrinks back and complains that he worked so hard just to reach C-rank. Watching his godfather leave, he shouts that he promises to complete the mission, no matter what. Shifting to the ocean, the scene shows a rocky cliff at night with a rough sea. Flying over the water, Yuji prepares to begin a new and different kind of training. Removing his mask, he says the sea at night is the perfect place to train the Snow Queen. When summoned, a creature emerges from a portal and runs towards him, screaming with joy. Crouching in front of her, he warns that it's time to train and that she needs to fight him, but she replies that she doesn't want to hurt him, and he assures her she can't. Hearing the command, she gets ready to attack, warning that she's coming at him with everything she's got. With a smile on his face, he shouts for her to use all her strength against him. So she concentrates, creating a large ice structure around herself to power up. Suddenly, a dark rift appears in the sky, unexpectedly interrupting their training. Noticing the rift, he's completely surprised and wonders what that thing is. Then, a strange, purple hand begins to emerge from inside the portal, revealing a new threat. Soon after, a monster resembling a muscular frog comes out of the rift, facing them both. Seeing the creature, he realizes it's a monster invasion, but thankfully only D rank. Then another portal opens, revealing a second monster shaped like a unicorn. Realizing the danger, he desperately yells for Xiaoshui to watch out for the monster behind her. In that same instant, the two creatures charge towards her together, preparing a quick, combined attack. Facing the enemies, she freezes for a second, surprised by the sudden attack from above. With no time to react, the frog monster lands a powerful blow, sending her flying. Seeing this, he prepares to act, shouting in rage at the monster's unexpected attack. At that moment, a very intense light explodes, coming from the exact spot where she was hit. Startled by the scene, he wonders what that thing is, shining so brightly. Suddenly, the light expands, filling the entire area with an energy that crystallizes. Right after, she reappears, now floating in the air in a new, much more powerful form. With a furious gaze, she stares down the monsters and asks if they are looking for death. Freezing the entire ocean, she turns the battlefield into an icy wasteland under the moon. The frog monster gets trapped in the ice, barely able to move as it stares at her. Looking up, the creature lets out a strange laugh, completely mesmerized by her new form. Hearing this, she calls him a perverted frog, showing her complete disgust at his reaction. Then Yang Shi appears and asks if she grew up. She replies that this is her battle form. Analyzing the transformation, he carefully observes the changes in her body and overall appearance. Continuing his observation, he notices that her height and proportions have also changed significantly. With a flushed face, he comments that her personality is still exactly the same as before. Soon after, she floats and unleashes a barrage of ice attacks at the monster. Upon being hit, the frog is completely frozen, but with a lovesick expression on its face. Asking if it's dead, she turns to Yang Shi, who replies that it hasn't been defeated yet. Just then, the monster breaks free from the ice with a scream, revealing its plasma ability. Preparing his attack, he extends his hand, concentrating a large amount of energy. With a confident smirk, the creature faces the energy blast flying toward it. Firing several projectiles at once, he attacks the monster from a distance with multiple swift strikes. As he fights, he orders Xiaoshui to restrain the monster's movements, receiving an immediate positive response. Obeying her master, she pins it to the ground with several ice spikes, immobilizing the creature. Putting on his mask, he declares, "Checkmate," preparing the final blow to end it all. Soon after, he fires several energy projectiles that fly at high speed toward the target. On impact, the attack hits dead on, causing a huge explosion that kicks up a lot of smoke. At that same moment, his feet touch the icy ground as he activates his special ability. Absorbing the energy, he steals the monster's D-rank ability, temporarily strengthening himself. Turning to her, he says he feels like he's forgetting something very important from the fight. Looking around, he finally wonders where the horned monster that escaped went. Just then, she warns him that she can feel the creature moving toward the nearby city. Determined, he tells them to go after it, but then he notices her appearance has suddenly changed. Angrily, she complains that she barely got to come out, and he's already trying to take over her body. Asking if she's okay, he hears her scream that her real name is Ling Nai. Then, she confronts him and angrily warns that she won't let him get what he wants. In the next moment, she moves in and kisses him, leaving him completely surprised and speechless. Suddenly, she turns back into a child in the middle of the kiss, leaving him totally confused by the situation. Seeing the transformation, he carefully holds her so she doesn't fall onto the icy ground. He then kneels in front of her, asking if she's really the Xiaojue he knows. Still on the ice, the two of them stand in front of each other, trying to understand what happened. Touching her head, he asks if she doesn't remember anything at all about what occurred. She confirms that she doesn't, asking if they weren't just training a little before the commotion. Realizing this, he concludes that she has two personalities that share no memories with each other. Delighted by the affection, she's happy he touched her head and asks for a hug. With an awkward smile, he comments that the only thing they have in common is how clingy they are with him. Seeing that she's sleepy, he tells her she can go back and rest for a bit. Then she says goodbye with a yawn, disappearing immediately after into a magic portal that opens up. Watching the portal close, he is left alone again on the vast, deserted field of ice. Turning toward the horizon, he deduces that the other beast must have headed for the crowds. The scene changes to an empty road near the beach during the dark night. Just then, Liu Yuan appears, driving a car at high speed, singing happily and excitedly. While driving, he notices something moving in the distant sky and tries to focus on it. Confused, He wonders what the hell that thing flying in the dark of night could be. Then the unicorn creature runs across the water, galloping toward the city at great speed. Slamming on the brakes, Liu Yan yells in anger as he sees the monster approaching the unsuspecting beach. Meanwhile, a group of people is having a barbecue on the sand, completely unaware of the imminent danger. Getting out of the car, he tries to warn them, shouting that a beast is coming their way. At that, one of the girls comments that there's someone on the road waving and shouting at them. With contempt, the muscular blonde complains that he's just trying to get attention with his sports car, but the other girl tries to listen more closely, realizing he's shouting a warning about a beast. Once they understand the danger, they are all completely shocked and turn fearfully toward the sea. Suddenly, a giant wave surges forward, sweeping everything away and sending the group into a total panic. Desperate, he hesitates, wondering what he should do and if he should save them. Then he runs into the water, complaining that he didn't used to be the type to get involved in this stuff. Struggling against the current, the blue-haired girl screams for help, nearly drowning in the sea. Just then, a strong hand grabs her wrist, pulling her forcefully to the surface. Soon after, the stronger man saves her, telling her to hold onto a log. Now safe, she yells for her other friend to come to the log to save himself too. Reaching out his hand, he says he's glad she's okay and tries to reach her. Suddenly, the unicorn emerges from the water and hits her friend, sending him flying with its horn. With her face covered in tears, she can only call out his name in complete despair. Soon after, he sinks into the sea and a huge wave forms, making her scream in horror. Still in the water, he tells her to hurry, promising to get her safely to the shore. Crying desperately, she begs him to help her friend who was dragged to the bottom of the sea. He then promises to save him later, telling her to get off the log before the beast returns. Scared, she yells no and hugs him with all her might, seeking protection from the monster. Carrying her to the beach, he complains that she looks thin, but is surprisingly heavy. Halfway there, he looks up at the sky and spots a helicopter approaching in the darkness. Soon after, the vehicle gets closer, flying over the area to assess the dangerous situation. Inside, a reporter announces that the station received calls about a beast and giant waves. Looking out the door, the crew sees the two youths on the beach, having narrowly escaped the danger. The reporter is then surprised to recognize the young man as the rich and famous young master, Liu. Changing scenes, the camera shows a large building with many lights on at night. Inside, a man complains that the glacial adventurer went to the conference with his father again. Running on a treadmill, a friend asks if he's jealous that Li Kanyang stole his position. Angrily, he replies that he'd rather build his strength than waste time sucking up to bureaucrats. His partner then interrupts, warning him that a beast has appeared on the beach where his brother is. Watching the broadcast, he says the kid would be too scared to even run away, but the image on the screen shows his brother running from the beast, leaving him completely shocked and speechless. In the helicopter, the reporter screams desperately, praying for the heroes to arrive in time to save them. In a rage, the older brother rips the TV off the wall, yelling at Liu Yuan to drop the woman and run. Ignoring the shouts, Liu Yuan protects the girl, facing the creature as it approaches him in the water. With a serious and determined look, he prepares for the confrontation, showing not a hint of fear. Seeing the scene, his friend laments, saying it's over for the kid and there's no salvation. Through clenched teeth, he can only whisper the name of his cute little brother. Suddenly, his friend shouts in surprise, pointing out that his brother can also use a transformation ability. At that exact moment, he transforms into a werewolf, holding the girl as the water explodes around them. Disbelieving what he sees, he wonders if his younger brother really has a transformation ability. Landing hard on the sand, he safely sets her down, cracking the ground with the impact. Looking at him, the girl blushes and calls him a hero, completely impressed by his actions. Flexing his muscles, he boasts, telling her not to get obsessed because he's a legend. He then runs towards the beast, yelling that a real man must kill the monster. The scene changes, and the fight now takes place near some giant rock formations in the dark of night. Arriving there, Yuji comments that he saved the man just in time to prevent an even greater tragedy. He then turns and watches the sea, preparing for what's about to happen. He then says he will now watch the first real battle of his new and eager disciple. Charging at the monster, he faces it in the water while the unicorn warns him to be careful. Dodging the attack, he moves under the creature, preparing a swift and precise counterattack. With a confident smile, he says he was waiting for that attack and grabs the enemy tightly. He then spins it with all his might, creating a giant whirlpool in the water. In the middle of the spin, the monster multiplies, creating several clones to escape and confuse him. The real one then attacks from a distance, firing an energy blast straight at his back. Taking the hit, he is thrown into the water, causing a huge explosion on impact. With a determined look, he tells himself he's no longer a normal human who runs away. Full of conviction, he yells that he'll surpass his brother and the old man to become a hero. Watching from afar, his master says he did a good job and that his opinion has changed. On the beach, her friends ask if the girl is okay, frightened by what happened. Crying, she explains that her friend sacrificed himself to protect her from the sea monster's attack. Hearing this, the two are left completely shocked and speechless by the sudden, tragic news. But she points to the fight, saying that Hero promised he would rescue her friend. Back in the water, Liu Yan gets up, wondering what the hell is going on with the fight. Trapped in a whirlpool, he complains that he can't move at all. While he's trapped, the creature charges at him, preparing a direct attack with its horn. With no chance to defend, the monster's horn pierces his body, causing a deep and serious wound. The impact of the blow throws him backward, and he falls defeated into the rough sea. The scene changes to a group of civilians fleeing a large explosion during a monster attack. Back on the beach, he appears on the sand, severely wounded in the back by the creature's strike. In the helicopter, the reporter comments that he's injured and at a major disadvantage in the current fight. Hearing this, his older brother decides to go help him, asking his friend to take care of the company. Using a jetpack on his back, he flies at high speed over the city to get there quickly. Still in the fight, he complains about the pain from the wound in his stomach but remains standing. Seeing its chance, the monster gallops forward again, preparing another quick attack to end the fight. He gets annoyed by its persistence, yelling that the monster is going to attack again. At that moment, a gigantic water tornado forms, charging towards the beach with immense force. Watching from the helicopter, the reporter yells that the monster's attack has gone completely out of control. Meanwhile, he faces the rocks, bracing for the wave's impact with determination. Swallowed by the water tornado, he desperately screams for his godfather, begging to be saved. He is then tossed uncontrollably within the current, screaming in pain from the force. Almost out of air, he struggles as the water pressure threatens to rip him in half. Just then, he looks up and spots something emerging from the sky, completely stunned by the sight. Floating in the water, he begs with his last ounce of strength for his godfather to save him from death. Seeing this, the group of civilians despairs, wondering if the young master will survive. With her eyes closed, the girl prays for her hero to be okay after that attack. Suddenly, Yuji appears in the sky, and the civilians shout that the backup hero has finally arrived. Landing on his board, he assesses the situation and is immediately recognized as the powerful Lord Yuji. Live from the helicopter, the reporter announces that the mysterious masked man from TV has appeared again. Watching him, he says that exposing the kid's ability was the perfect bait for his plan. Raising his hand, he activates his metal control, wondering if the blue pill will take the bait. Nearby, a civilian is startled to see a metal pole twist all by itself. With his power, he creates several metal blades that float around him, ready to attack. Seeing the new opponent, the unicorn creature stares at him with a look of surprise and deep suspicion. He then taunts it, telling the little monster to swallow the attack coming its way. He then fires all the blades at once, sending them flying at high speed. Hit squarely, the monster neighs in pain as it's pierced by all the metal projectiles. Meanwhile, Liu Yuan continues to float in the water, completely unconscious from his severe injuries. Impressed, the reporter shouts that the mysterious man defeated the monster with a single skill. He then rescues Liu Yuan from the water, placing his unconscious body on the board. Once saved, he returns to his normal form but remains passed out from his injuries. With the monster defeated, he takes its skill orb, saying it earned him this. The system interface then appears, confirming that the skill theft was a success. Upon receiving the power, he now has the ability to walk on water and control its flow. Turning to his godson, he says the boy attracted the pill's attention and will get the credit. Meanwhile, the girl in the water watches him descend slowly, holding her friend in his arms. Landing on the sand, he lays the two injured people down, assuring them their wounds are no longer life-threatening. Just then, Liu Yuan wakes up, groaning in pain but happy to be alive. Relieved, the girl hugs him, thanking him for saving her friend and coming back to her safely. Blushing, he asks her not to squeeze so tight, as she's pressing on his wound. She then asks why he's changed, and he boasts that he's a hero of justice. Looking at the moon, he mentally thanks his godfather, promising to serve him to the best of his ability. Meanwhile, the civilians comment that Yuji is a true god for his heroic actions. Suddenly, a man in a suit bumps into him, making the young man complain about the unexpected collision. Looking at the man, he recognizes him instantly, shocked to see who it is. The man then accuses him of breaking the law, ordering him to come to the Hero Association. Whispering, one of the civilians asks who he is, as he doesn't see an association mark on him. Liu Yuan explains that he's a bureaucrat who uses the law to do disgusting things. Confronted, he tries to argue with the man, saying he was just saving people on the beach. But the official ignores him, stating he has no authority to use his ability in public. Staring at the man, a voice cuts in, saying the Kunlun company will handle the matter. In that instant, the hero demon dragon appears on the scene, surprising everyone. Confused, Liu Yuan asks his brother why he suddenly showed up here and now. Analyzing his wounds, he comments that his regeneration is strong and tells him to stay out of trouble. As he leaves, the official warns that he expects a good explanation from the company for the hero association. Watching his brother, he wonders how he awakened a skill out of nowhere and became a user. Back home, the scene shows the exterior of a modern, luxurious residence during the day. Inside, Yang Shi is relaxing after a shower, drying his hair with a towel. Looking at his hand, he examines the water orb, thinking about his various elemental abilities. He then considers how interesting it would be if he could combine all his powers into one. Relaxing, he thinks about finding a healing ability, but he doesn't know where to get information about it. So he decides he'll infiltrate the hero's body to find out more. Activating his power, the control interface appears, and he prepares for the body possession. Changing scenes, a large building with modern architecture is shown on a sunny, peaceful day. Walking along a pathway, the hero strolls calmly, humming a tune as he wanders the grounds. Suddenly, he feels a sharp pain, as if his body has been hit by an electric shock. With the possession complete, Yang Shi takes control, looking around through the hero's eyes. He confirms the possession was a success, and that he can now move the body. When he tries to use his metal control, he realizes nothing happens, and his ability doesn't work. He then understands that the orb remained in his original body and didn't move with his soul. From a distance, he hears an argument and wonders what's going on. Hiding behind a tree, he watches the scene unfold, trying to understand the situation. In the middle of the fight, a man harasses a woman, telling her she has to follow the company's rules. With a malicious smirk, he threatens her, saying she must either serve him or serve their boss. He then reveals that the boss is great with healing abilities as he pulls at her clothes. Hearing that, he realizes he's finally found a clue, saying that even God is on his side. Without hesitation, the man rips her clothes, trying to take her by force against her will. Crying in despair, she screams that she doesn't want to go, begging him to leave her alone. Suddenly, a swift blow hits the man, sending him flying and making him cry out in pain. The impact sends him crashing through the bushes, landing on the other side with leaves flying everywhere. Getting up furiously, he shouts, asking which bastard dared to hit him like that. Stepping out from behind the tree, he reveals himself and says he will punish him in the name of justice. Confronting him, the green-haired man asks why he's getting involved. Protecting the girl, he asks how the man would feel if his own daughter suffered the same. With disdain, the man says she wanted this chance, even if she was suffering on the outside. Hearing that, she screams in despair, telling him to stop talking nonsense and that she never wanted it. He then advises her to think carefully, as this kind of deal never truly ends. Thanking him for saving her, she says he's a good person, leaving him silent for a moment. Turning to the man, she calls him trash, making a face of contempt before leaving. Soon after she leaves, letting the two men stare each other down in the middle of the path without a word. Thinking to himself, the man with glasses remembers his transformation only lasts 15 minutes and requires food. Angrily, he yells that the hero will face the consequences for letting her escape. With his arms crossed, he asks with a smirk what exactly those consequences would be. Leaping to attack, the man shouts for him to get ready because he's going to leave him completely crippled. Just then, he puts a pill in his mouth, showing he was prepared for a confrontation. Then he transforms, activating his hero suit with the words, "Sour and spicy transformation." Completely shocked, the man with glasses can only scream, not believing what just happened. Without giving him a chance, he lunges forward and lands a direct blow to the chest, sending his opponent flying. The impact sends the man tumbling across the ground, landing near some bushes. Turning around, he notices the man has vanished and wonders what could have happened. Then the man reappears, saying he'll just wait for the 15 minutes of his transformation to run out. Hearing this, he questions if his time limit is really 15 minutes. Back in his body, Yang Shi explains that the orb enhances the mental spirit connected to the soul. He continues, saying the hero only lasts 15 minutes because he can't control his energy, but he can use his spiritual power to unleash his full strength, making the transformation last. With a confident smile, he prepares to show his true power, surprising his opponent. Using his perception, he locates the man hidden on top of a building, ready to attack. He then leaps forward, saying that weaklings always like to hide from others. Upon finding him, he grabs him and asks how he was found, and if he is a hero. With a smile, he says that perhaps the man doesn't know, but he's been hiding his power. Defeated, the man begs to be released, promising to give him benefits from the God Dragon Company. Holding him by the collar, he says he won't let him go, knowing he'll just cause more trouble. With a malicious grin, he says the man has reminded him of something very important. Scared, the man with glasses asks what he's planning to do right now. Then he attacks him from behind, making the man scream and ask if he's gay. Scared, the man asks them to talk instead of using violence to solve things. Yang Shi then explains that the plan is to teach him a lesson and avoid being blamed for it later. Without a second thought, he drags him into the bushes, ignoring all his screams and pleas. Desperate, the man begs not to have his clothes taken off, but he's completely ignored by the hero. After a while, he comes out taking pictures of the man, securing blackmail material against him. On the screen, the photo shows the green-haired man crying in shame and humiliation. Then he tells himself he has the information he needs, and that it's time to leave. With his eyes closed, he ends his control over the hero's body, completing his mission. Suddenly, the hero wakes up confused, wondering where he is and what happened. Still in the park, he wonders if he just fell asleep and doesn't remember anything. Reading the message, he wonders what photos those are that can't be deleted. Upon seeing the image, his eyes widen and he blushes, completely shocked by the content. Screaming in embarrassment, he wonders what the hell that is, climbing a tree in a panic. Changing scenes, the shot shows the Lugang City branch of the Hero Association. Inside, the branch leader, Wu Ziji, appears, his imposing presence filling the room. In the room, two older men watch the meeting, their positions of power and influence clear. On the other side, co-leader Oh Yang Yan also joins the conversation, maintaining a serious and professional demeanor. The leader then says that the defense planning will require everyone's help due to its scale. Next, the co-leader explains that they will all serve as models, representing the image of monster hunters. Celebrating the news, one of the heroes present says he will risk his life for the association and defeat heroes. Listening to the conversation, the older man thinks the intention is to send an A-rank hero. He also concludes the intention is clear, as whoever has the image of a hunter makes a lot of money. Excited, the other heroes comment that the most important key to success is information. Furthermore, they know that in the world of beasts, there are items to improve skills and weapons. With a smile, one of the young men says that the strongest one has the final say. With an ambitious look, he says he can't wait to get the special skill items. Meanwhile, Yang Shi activates his clone ability, creating a copy of himself in his house. Looking at the copy, he says it's strange to see himself that way, but he gets ready. His clone then begins to wonder how he should combine his plasma and metal abilities. He then decides to dismantle the mind control to improve the plasma and get a support ability. With his hands, he fuses the abilities, creating a new B-rank ability called Shadow Swap. Soon after, he inserts the metal and water abilities into his clone's back, transferring the power. Touching his chest, he instructs him to be as cold and domineering as the real Yuji. Then, a transformation interface appears, and his clone changes, putting on a new and different mask. With his new look, he faces his creator, ready to receive his orders and fulfill his mission. With a smile, Yang Shi sends him to become the second saint to harvest the snake's ability. The scene changes. A plane lands in Shoujo City on a sunny day. Stepping off the plane, Yang Shi sets foot in the city, ready to begin his new infiltration mission. Walking with his suitcase, he remarks that he didn't expect to be so popular and well-known. Then a taxi stops in front of him, and he wonders what the driver wants. Offering a ride, the driver asks if he's a tourist from the first area and needs help. Without a word, he gets in the car, and the taxi speeds off through the streets. On the way, he reads a message on his phone, confirming the information has been sent to his email. Meanwhile, the driver recommends he visit the city's large, popular casino. He also offers to take him to a place with girls, saying he's young and handsome. Showing a photo, the man says the girls are enthusiastic and the cost isn't high. Hearing the offer, he thinks about how chaotic this city is, full of strange dealings. Soon after, the driver announces they've arrived at the hotel, stopping in front of a building. When he goes to pay, he's shocked by the amount, realizing it's much higher than he expected. Looking at the meter, he notices the fare has been multiplied by 5. Angrily, the driver says he's giving him his first lesson in the city's second area. Pointing a gun, the driver asks if he'd hesitate to choose between his life and his coins. With a cold gaze, he says he won't hesitate, but he's the one who will be teaching the lesson. Arriving at the hotel, the receptionist hands over the room key, while the driver carries carries the bags. Without turning around, he simply says thanks, leaving the driver with an expression of anger and frustration. Seeing this, the female employees comment on how he managed to make a barbaric driver carry his luggage. While one wonders if he'll ask her to dinner, the other is speechless. Entering the elevator, he tells the driver he's leaving and that he should treat people better. Going up to the 37th floor, he prepares to find his target and proceed with the plan. Walking down the hall, he looks at his phone, reading the file on his target from the Saint organization. The information says the user Fake Boxer is in room 4411 on this very floor. Then he transforms, activating his new mask and preparing to infiltrate the room. Reaching the door, he approaches silently, ready to enter and surprise his target. Using his ability, he slips under the door, entering the room without a sound. Once inside, he materializes again, ready for the confrontation to come. Walking through the room, he calls out to his target, telling him to come out with a sinister laugh. Just then, the mission's target appears, asking for a hug from two girls on the bed. Hearing the intruder's voice, one of the girls turns, completely stunned by the sight. Suddenly, several tentacles erupt and attack him, making the two girls scream in pure panic. Seeing the shadows surround him, the big guy shouts desperately, demanding to know who's there. Just then, a man in a white mask emerges from the shadows, revealed as the attacker. Without a second thought, he shoves the hostage towards the danger, screaming for help. But the newcomer ignores the brute and uses his powers to restrain the two women. He then uses one of his shadows to extract something from the girl's forehead. Absorbing the released energy, the fighter increases his muscle mass and prepares for combat. He then charges full force at the intruder, yelling that he's going to finish him. Instantly, the man in white manipulates the shadows and easily neutralizes his opponent. Surprised by this skill, the big guy questions if he can really control that kind of power. Meanwhile, the two women remain unconscious on the floor, connected to the intruder's power. Maintaining his posture, he continues to face his opponent without any immediate reaction. Analyzing his opponent, the brute takes a defensive stance, studying the next move. Suddenly, several shadows lunge forward again and strike his body head-on. Pinned against the bed, he threatens to report the intruder to some organization. The intruder just watches his target squirm as he makes his final threat. Noticing the intruder's silence, the brute lunges with a punch, demanding an immediate response. But the attack lands squarely on the masked man's face, who doesn't even move an inch. Believing he's won, the big guy celebrates, saying he finally landed a hit. However, his arm simply passes through the target's body, leaving the fighter in total shock. In that same instant, the masked man grabs his fist with surprising strength. Straining with all his might, the fighter uselessly tries to pull his arm back, but it's too late. Completely terrified, he begs for his life and warns that a priest won't forgive him. Ignoring the pleas, the intruder simply rips the mask from the face of the desperately crying man. Seeing this, the masked man just says he's too weak and continues his assault. Then, he grabs the man's head forcefully, who screams in pain from the grip. Placing a hand on his face, the intruder begins to extract an energy from his body. A moment later, a sphere of light is removed, revealing that his ability has been stolen. A system window describes the stolen power, called the C-rank Mask of Fear. Powerless, the man demands his ability back, but the intruder has other plans. Activating a new function, he begins to use a mind control power against the fighter. Entering the opponent's mind, the intruder accesses his deepest and most secret memories. Going back in time, it's revealed that the man was found on the brink of death. Then a priest approaches and offers him a new life in exchange for his loyalty. With the deal struck, an intense energy begins to completely heal all his wounds. As he stands up, he's shocked to realize he has truly been reborn and has no injuries. Soon after, he bows in gratitude and swears eternal loyalty to his savior. Under control, the man leaves the room to follow the orders received from the intruder. Arriving at a port, he walks towards a large white cargo ship. Nearby, he looks around to ensure the area is completely secure. Then, he focuses his attention on a red container standing among the others. Analyzing this memory, the intruder discovers the mention of a certain red-colored cargo. The memory then takes him to a room where several people are gathered for a meeting. In this place, a woman asks about a girl who went to the production area. Kneeling, he says she's a minor problem and can be eliminated with a single order. But a military officer questions how he could kill such a high-rank heroine. Soon after, an older mage states that the saint's disciples do not fear heroes. With a smile, the blonde priest simply orders them to bring the girl to him. Instantly, everyone present confirms they will obey their master and priest. Getting ready to leave, the man announces he's departing for the mission. However, the officer calls him back, referring to him as the boxer. Bowing Bowing, he receives the order about the red cargo that arrived at the port. Lighting a cigar, the officer tells him to look for information about the sealed sword the next day. He also mentions that damaged goods are normal, telling him not to waste the chance. Back at the port, he stares at the red container, wondering what the goods are. Finding a fingerprint lock, he simply places his hand on the scanner to open it. But the plasma system fails, showing only a static screen afterward. Despite this, the container door opens, revealing a staircase to a basement. Going down the stairs, he notices the place has a strong, strange smell of blood. He then continues his way into the darkness, following the scent in the air. Upon arriving downstairs, he finds a lone guard sitting at a table. Noticing his presence, the guard turns his face toward the sound of footsteps. He then greets him and asks about the conditions at the site today. In response, the guard complains that some brats are making noise because of a negotiation. Hearing this, he just sighs and orders the guard to take him for a look. Walking down a hallway, he hears the sound of crying coming from several nearby cells. Yelling at a boy, the guard threatens to whip him if he annoys the masked lord. In silence, the boy just stares at the masked man approaching the cell. Seeing the scene, he curses the saints for keeping children locked in that horrible place. Looking around, he notices they are young people kidnapped from many different places. At that moment, the memory of the officer smoking his cigar returns to his mind. Feeling the intruder's rage, the controlled body promises they will all pay dearly. Changing scenes, a man threatens to whip the prisoner to death. Chained to the wall, a black-haired young man takes several blows to his back without reacting. Furious, the blonde guard yells that the prisoner dared to bite him during the violent punishment. Arriving on the scene, the masked boxer orders the guard to stop the assault immediately. He then explains that the troublemaking young man attacked him and bit his ear. With a defiant look, the prisoner stares at the two men without showing any fear. Seeing his reaction, the masked man asks the young man the reason for his actions. But the guard interrupts, saying he obviously had bad intentions towards someone. Soon after, a blue-haired young man arrives and reveals he wanted to attack his sister. Hearing this, the masked boxer turns his face, completely shocked by the new information. In the corner of the cell, a little girl is huddled on the floor, trembling with fear of everyone. With a smile, the young man says, "It's a shame she's scared to death." Then, he greets the masked man and asks if he liked the blondes he recommended. He replies that he did, but he came to check the merchandise for the Navy's military lord. Ending the conversation, he orders them to release the prisoner as he still has some value. Grabbing the young man's face, the blue-haired one says he's worth a lot. Full of hate, the prisoner shouts that he swears he will still manage to kill them all. At that, the masked man tells the young man to hang on, because he will get what he wants. Suspicious, the blue-haired man asks if he understands the language the boy is speaking. With his hand glowing, he confirms he will grant the prisoner's wish right now. Suddenly, he lands a swift blow directly to the blue-haired guy's chest. Not understanding, the man who was hit asks why he is doing that to him. Revealing his identity, he says he came from the same area and is not the fake lord. Then, his silhouette is seen delivering a final, decisive blow to his target. Confused by the scene, the other two guards ask what just happened there. Unleashing his power, he calmly warns that they will all die in that place. Furious, the blonde guard charges forward, yelling a curse, and attacks with everything he's got, but he is stopped mid-air, completely immobilized by the new enemy's powers. Instantly, a powerful plasma energy begins to form around him. Being electrocuted, the guard screams in pain while the other accomplice just watches the scene. Terrified by the scene, the last guard is completely paralyzed and starts to break into a cold sweat. Soon after, he is also attacked by the shadows and screams in pain as he is defeated. Their abilities stolen, the guards' bodies are left behind near the cell. Watching everything in silence, the chained prisoner stares as his mysterious and powerful savior approaches. Next, the masked man shows the two powers he just stole from the guards. Regaining his courage, the young man introduces himself as Yefan and asks who he is. Still on his knees, the young man insists on asking who the man in front of him is. Answering the question, he says he came to save him and that he saw what they were doing. Placing a hand on his shoulder, he tells the boy he will understand everything soon. Then, he uses his energy to break the chains that held Yefan to the wall. Now standing, the young man watches his savior turn towards the cell door. Running to the corner, he hugs his sister tightly as she cries with relief. Seeing this, the masked man says the girl's name, surprising her older brother. Just then, more guards appear in the hallway and yell for everyone to capture the intruder immediately. Without hesitation, he charges forward, yelling that those scum will die and attacks with his shadows. His power cuts the first opponent in half, who screams as he is split in two. Soon after, another guard's head flies through the air from the impact of the blow. In the end, he stands amidst the bodies of the enemies he just eliminated, but a red-haired woman appears, saying she found the whole scene very impressive. Introducing herself as a heroine, she suggests to her partner that they surround him together. With a smile, the man with face paint agrees and prepares for combat. With the spearman ready, the heroine tells the masked man to attack first to start the fight. At that, the red-haired hero decides to use his music and prepares to attack. Activating his power, he creates an energy disc and throws it towards everyone. At the same time, the imprisoned children scream in pain, affected by the music's power. Feeling the pain, the masked man realizes he needs to act quickly to protect the younger ones. Pretending to be stunned, he starts moving strangely, tricking his opponent. Believing he has won, the hero charges with a strike and yells for his target to die. In the same instant, the masked man vanishes into thin air, easily dodging the attack. Reappearing right above, he surprises the hero in the suit, who didn't expect such speed. Then he lands a direct blow on the hero's back, who screams from the impact. Fallen on the ground, the man in red desperately screams for help, begging to be saved. Soon after, the spearman charges with his flaming weapon to strike the masked man, but he uses the fallen hero's body as a shield to protect himself from the blow. Piercing through both of them, the spear impales the masked man, who shows no reaction. In silence, he just stares at the weapon stuck in his back, ignoring all the pain. Yelling in rage, he smashes the ground with a devastating blow, shattering the floor. Shocked by the scene, the spearman asks why he betrayed the organization like that. Even injured, he just coughs and returns the question, wanting to know the reason for the betrayal. Looking at the children, he reveals he did it all for them and for justice. But the spearman laughs at the idea, warning that the military lord is already on his way. With a smile, he says he will kill everyone who approaches, with no exceptions. Facing his last opponent, the two prepare for their final confrontation. Suddenly, a dark energy begins to pour from the lancer's head as he strains. The masked man then absorbs this energy into his body, becoming visibly stronger. With all his might, the lancer attacks with a barrage of fiery blows, screaming for him to die. Blocking the attacks with his arms, he takes the full force of the damage directly. Leaping over the flames, he launches himself at his opponent with incredible speed. In that same instant, the lancer's silhouette is pierced by several strikes that hit him. After catching his breath, he says that his rival's last attack really hurt. Through the bars, one of the boys notices his wound, but he replies that it's nothing. Opening the main cell, he tells the children to leave calmly in a single file line. Seeing Ye Fan carrying his sister, he calls him by name, getting his attention. Looking at him with determination, the young man asks his savior to teach him how to be that strong. In response, he accepts the request, but demands an oath of eternal loyalty in return. Without hesitation, Ye Fan promises that from now on, he will be his most loyal subordinate. Activating his control power, he offers the boy a sphere of golden energy. Receiving the power sphere, the boy asks his new master what it is. He then explains that the power transforms his arms into metal for protection. With a grateful smile, Ye Fan thanks his master for the new ability. As the boy leaves, the masked man just watches him walk away down the corridor. Turning his attention to the bodies, he says he needs to take care of the dead now. Using his theft ability, he begins to extract the powers of the fallen heroes. First, a golden energy is drawn from the body of one of the organization's guards. Then, he does the same with the heroine, pulling a blue energy from her body. Gathering all the new powers, he remarks on how weak humans and monsters truly are. He then decides to use the spheres to enhance his shadow exchange ability. Holding the new power, he says it will be easier to face this priest. Leaving the place behind, he walks out of the port's container area. In that same moment, he notices a sharp blade rapidly approaching his neck. Just then, a blonde woman appears, demanding to know who he is and where the children are. Analyzing the newcomer, he seems to recognize her from somewhere but says nothing. Staring suspiciously at the masked man, the woman tries to understand the situation. At that moment, the children run to the woman, calling her Sister Blanche. Then, one of the boys defends the masked man, explaining that he actually saved everyone. Confirming the story, the other kids ask her not to get the wrong idea. Realizing her mistake, the woman looks embarrassed and apologizes for the misunderstanding. But he says it's all right and recognizes her as the A-rank heroine. She then turns to one of the injured boys and apologizes for being late. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake and one of the kids nearly loses his balance. Not understanding, the masked man yells, wondering what the hell is going on. Instantly, thorny vines sprout from the ground and capture two of the boys. In the midst of the chaos, gigantic vines with enormous thorns sprout from the ground, surrounding the entire port. Desperate, the other boys captured by the vines scream for help, calling for their mothers. Ye-Fan shouts for his master, but he tells him to calm down, saying he'll save everyone. Suddenly, the priest and his subordinates appear atop a giant flower in the sky. With a smile, the woman ironically asks if he really thinks he's such a great hero. Beside her, the military officer just stares at his opponents with a serious expression. Meanwhile, the organization's mage observes the situation with a calm and experienced gaze. The priest then orders his servants to show the saint's power to that ant. Feeling the new energy, the woman just expresses surprise at the power she just received. She then explains that the priest's power can quickly restore their abilities. Turning to the heroine, the priest warns that she can't touch his property. He then threatens that the traitor will die, but the masked man questions his certainty. Analyzing the enemies, Blanche notes that the support priest will be their biggest problem. She then yells that the hero association is already on its way. Ignoring the threat, the priest just lets out a completely mocking laugh. Ordering a swift attack, the priest commands them to capture the heroine before help arrives. Without wasting time, Blanche unleashes the seal on her sword, revealing its full power. Impressed by her strength, the masked man acknowledges the power of an A-rank heroine. With her sword glowing, she charges forward with a powerful strike toward her opponents. To stop her, the mage uses his sand magic to create a protective barrier. Instantly, a gigantic wall of earth rises and blocks the heroine's path, but she leaps over it, shattering the barrier to pieces and continuing her attack. Next, the military man uses his power to seal the heroine's movements in midair. Using water, he creates a powerful whirlpool to trap the woman and nullify her power. However, she breaks free easily and launches an energy slash from her sword at him. Suddenly, she realizes something is wrong, and her face twists in complete shock. At that moment, the woman from the organization uses one of the hostages, placing him in front of the attack. Struck by the blow, the boy screams in pain as his body disintegrates. Furious, the heroine shouts that she used a child as a human shield. With a smile, the villain says that her kindness is her weakness, and that she has more hostages. With a small laugh, the military man's body completely transforms into pure running water. He then appears behind her and raises a weapon made of water. Realizing the attack, she turns quickly as her sword reacts to the danger. But another masked man appears and intercepts the blow, shattering his own mask in the process. With the impact of the strike, the pieces of the mask scatter across the ground. He then reveals a second mask underneath and says that it was almost destroyed. Moving quickly, he strikes the soldier in the neck with a dagger. Screaming in pain, the man starts to bleed, feeling the full impact of the blow. Fallen on the ground, the soldier keeps screaming as the masked man watches him from a distance, but the intruder grabs the heroine and tells her to wait, watching the scene unfold. At that moment, the priest uses his sacred healing to help his servants recover. With his wound healed, the soldier gets up from the ground without a single scratch on his body. Laughing, he shouts that with the priest's help, they are all immortal. Right after, the priest casts a power buff on his three servants at once. With this new energy, the trio prepares to attack the two of them with full force. He then realizes the buff has temporarily boosted their powers to A rank. Floating in the air, the mage begins to join his hands and generate energy. Desperate, Blanche yells that his spell will exceed A rank with the buff. Worried, he realizes the damage could hit the children and that he needs to stop him. Turning to his ally, he tells her to handle the other two and leave the rest. With his fingers glowing, he simply tells her to trust him and gets ready to act. Despite his mysterious nature, Blanche feels she can trust the masked man and his combat strategy. So, she prepares to fight with all her might and shouts that she'll clear a path. Unleashing her seal of agility, she dashes forward with incredible speed towards the soldier ahead. Mid-dash, she lands a direct sword strike to her opponent's chest. Unable to defend himself, the soldier curses and yells for his companion's help, but the woman in red just complains that she's already told him not to call her that. Right after, she uses her rose charm power to attack the heroine from a distance. Feeling her strength wane, Blanche realizes the enemy's power has weakened her. The villainess then reveals that her body awakens desire and weakens her target's strength. Meanwhile, the soldier uses his ability to create several water clones and surround her. Grabbing the heroine, one of the clones asks if she wants to be pampered by Big Bro over here, but she releases a spiritual seal, creating a barrier of light against the nearby clones. Surprised, the villainess says she didn't know the heroine had that kind of power. In that same instant, the light barrier expands and hits the woman head-on. Fallen on the ground, the villainess realizes the effect was good and it awakened her desire. Bleeding from the mouth, the villainess doesn't understand how the heroine managed to do that to her. Just then, the mage joins his hands and yells for his summon to finally come out and fight. With a roar, a giant earth dragon emerges from among the port's shipping containers. At the same time, the masked man's shadows climb the vines to save the trapped boys. Then the dragon roars towards the heroine, who braces for the coming fight. Completely shocked by the summon, Blanche is paralyzed with fear and can't move, but the masked man runs and shoves her aside, saving the heroine from the monster's imminent attack. Right after, he turns to the dragon and fires a blast of energy at it. Feeling the power, the dragon is hit by an energy that paralyzes it instantly. With a smile, the masked man snaps his fingers and prepares for the next step. In that same instant, the dragon's body explodes into 1,000 pieces, kicking up a lot of dust. At that moment, a helicopter from the Heroes Association arrives on scene to provide support. Thanking his master, the mage says his protection saved him from the explosion. But the priest complains that he lost 2 members and was defeated by a mysterious man. Trying to calm him, the mage says the organization will recover as long as he's alive. Agreeing with his servant, the priest says their position will never change with him around. Meanwhile, he decides he needs to retreat for now, since the enemy is stronger. Watching the villains leave, the masked man and the heroine just watch them flee. With a smile, he says he'll let them live for just a few more minutes. Then, he turns to the soldier's body and declares that his ability is his now. Extending his hand, he prepares to begin the process of extracting another power. Soon after, he acquires the Sea Spectre ability, which strengthens the water in the body. Next, he turns and says the blood-red rose is next. Extracting the power, he comments on how the sealed sword can be quite merciless when it wants to be. Having acquired the ability, he can now summon rose vines with his own blood. With the new orbs, he plans to create another powerful A-rank ability. Shattering the 2 energy orbs, he begins the fusion process. Right after, he obtains the A-rank ability called Enhanced Superbrain. Absorbing the power, he feels all his senses becoming much sharper and stronger. Beside him, the heroine blinks, snapping out of her trance after the last battle. Noticing her reaction, he turns to her and asks if she's finally awake. Looking around, she sees the place is completely destroyed by the huge explosion. At this, she asks for the name and rank of her new companion's ability. Turning towards the horizon, he reveals he's part of the adjudication organization, Sishe, but she says she's never heard of that group in the Heroes Association she belongs to. Then, she panics when she realizes the children are no longer in the same spot. He then reveals that the children are safe, right behind her in a protected spot. Running to them, the children cry out for her, saying they were very scared. One of the boys explains that it was the master's shadow that saved them from danger. He says the masked man used his shadows to cut the vines and then protect them. With that explanation, she understands how they all managed to land safely on the ground. Confused by the story, she wonders who this master is that the children keep talking about. Turning to thank him, the heroine says he was very thoughtful with the children, but she realizes he has simply vanished, leaving no trace behind. Just then, the association's helicopter announces that the area is now under its jurisdiction. With the arrival of reinforcements, several agents descend from the helicopter to analyze the scene. Soon after, a reporter and her cameraman approach to do a live report. Anxiously, she says it's her first interview and asks what she should do now. He replies that she should go interview the sealed sword heroine first. Approaching, the reporter introduces herself and asks to interview the heroine. With a smile, Blanche introduces herself as the association's A-rank heroine. At the same time, the live broadcast begins, with several comments appearing on screen. The reporter then asks what happened, since the port is a complete mess. Explaining the situation, Blanche says she came to save children from an illegal trade. Meanwhile, the reporter comments that she's heard of this criminal organization and its activities. But the heroine says it wasn't easy to get the information to save the children. Watching the interview, people on the streets demand the association punish the evil saints. Blanche then reveals she couldn't have done it alone, and that she received some mysterious help. Surprised by this revelation, the reporter asks who this mysterious person was that helped. She then describes that he had combat skills superior to hers and a unique power. Pointing to the crater, she says he wore a strange snake mask. With this revelation, everyone begins to speculate about the man's identity and power, but the reporter notices that he doesn't seem to be anywhere nearby anymore. Blanche then points to the side and says he went in that direction to chase the priest. Changing scenes, the priest and his mage arrive at an underground parking garage to escape. Powerless, He says the mage needs to get rid of the guy who followed them. The mage then confirms that he filled the area with his plasma nullifying ability, but the masked man was already there and tells them they'll find a car soon. With a smile, he says this place will be where they both die today. Suddenly, a phone starts ringing loudly, echoing throughout the parking garage. Startled, the two villains turn and shout, asking who's there with them. Annoyed, he wonders who's calling him at such an inconvenient time. Curious about the noise, the two slowly approach to see what's happening. With the phone in his hand, he wonders why Xiaoxiu is calling now. Suddenly, an alarm blares. The masked man watches as the two older men turn towards him. One of them, very suspicious, loudly asks who's approaching them. Without a word, the masked man's system activates a quick outfit change right in front of them. He then appears with a new look and answers a call, surprising the old man. Seeing that he looks like a commoner, the old man suggests they watch him carefully before jumping to conclusions. On the phone, he asks the young woman where she is, questioning if she wasn't at home. She excitedly replies, revealing she's in a helicopter flying over Shazhou City. Hearing the name of the place, he is completely shocked by the news he just received. He then asks why she came, since the city is in absolute chaos. Wanting to know the reason, he asks more seriously what kind of job this is. She then explains that she's become a journalist for the Hero Association and will be interviewing him soon. Realizing the situation, he is speechless as he understands what just happened. Analyzing the situation, he concludes that with the association's help, she'll find him in no time. He then says he'll prepare a gift for her, saying goodbye and arranging to meet up. Watching from afar, the blonde man comments with envy that he was just talking to his little girlfriend. Activating his power, he changes his look again to prepare for combat. Realizing the trick, the blonde man shouts desperately, warning that they've been fooled by him. Right after, he appears at the end of the hall in his masked suit, completely surprising the duo. Without wasting a moment, the old man summons two beasts and shouts for them to attack him. Moving quickly, he dodges the creature's first attack with a precise blow to its body. With a smile on his face, the blonde man says they need this kind of beast to defeat him. Meanwhile, the old man explains that each creature can easily face an A-rank enemy. Caught by surprise, he manifests a new power in his hands to counterattack. In that same instant, his strike pierces through both creatures, defeating them with extreme ease. Appearing behind the blonde man, he lands a fatal blow that pierces through the enemy's chest. In complete shock, the blonde man asks how this is possible, thinking he used electricity, but he reveals to the old man that he actually possesses two elements, to everyone's surprise. Sensing death is near, the blonde man begs to be spared, promising a reward. Demanding silence, he states that people live for justice, not for mere benefits. Then, he finishes off both men at once, who scream in pain. Desperate, the blonde man ingests several blue objects to increase his strength and fight back. Jumping back, the masked man moves away as the fallen blonde shouts about the blue pill. Then the blonde man gets up from the floor, unleashing a great power around him. With a look of hatred, he says he was forced to use his last resort. He then brings his hand to his mouth and bites his own finger with great force. Right after, he shoves a rod down his own throat, screaming in pain from the process. Observing the scene, the masked man says the sensation is the same as Blanche's sword. At that, a large golden spear fully materializes in front of everyone present. Holding the weapon, he boasts about having the Spear of Judgment and prepares his attack. Raising the spear high, he concentrates a large amount of energy for the strike. Summoning his power, several energy portals appear, creating dozens of spears in the air. Pointing at the masked man, the spears are ready to be fired at any moment. With a furious shout, he orders the criminal to be sent to his final judgment. With nowhere to run, the masked man is surrounded by the projectiles raining down from the sky. Moving at high speed, he manages to dodge the first strikes coming his way. Even while running, he realizes the attacks keep following him everywhere. In a moment of carelessness, one of the strikes grazes his arm, causing an injury. Seeing the wound, the blonde man laughs and tells him to keep running and jumping. Kneeling on the ground, he realizes the destructive power of the attack is very dangerous. Looking up, he understands that the light on the ceiling instantly detects his location. Surrounded on all sides, he then asks if they are going to compare speeds now. Laughing at the question, the blonde man asks if there is anything faster than light. In that same instant, everything around him seems to freeze completely, stopping the attack in midair. Activating his super brain, he simply scoffs at the idea of fighting against the speed of light. With his power, the spears of light freeze completely in the air before hitting their target. The blonde man stands frozen in confusion, surrounded by several shadows that appear out of nowhere. Instantly teleporting, the masked man appears in several places at once, holding a dagger. Right after, his clones position themselves around the enemy, preparing a joint attack. Then, They all charge at once, hitting the blonde man with multiple simultaneous cross strikes. While this happens, time remains stopped, and the spears of light stay frozen. With a simple command, he orders the time paralysis to be lifted immediately. Hearing the command, the blonde man is completely confused and scared, not understanding what's happening. In that instant, the spears start moving again, but now towards him. Unable to react in time, he is hit head-on by all the projectiles. Gravely wounded, he realizes the enemy actually has 3 different abilities. Feeling his body heal, he notices his regeneration ability has been activated, but the masked man warns him not to heal, or he will die yet again. He then activates his skill theft, absorbing all of the blonde man's healing power. Gaining a new A-rank ability, the system displays the power's details. He then activates the healing, fusing the newly acquired energy directly into his own chest. As he recovers, he says he didn't expect the enemy to have the blue pill. Nearby, the old man's body is already on the ground, his ability stolen. Testing the new power, he comments that the old man's sand ability is very good. At that moment, he realizes the Hero Association is approaching the fight scene. Flying over the area, a helicopter announces that they have the entire region under control. Deciding to leave, he transforms and says he'll leave the cleanup to them. Outside, several helicopters have already landed, and many people are gathering at the entrance. On the scene, the reporter comments on the noise and the walls cracked by the fight. She is then shocked to see the blonde man's body, recognizing him as the priest of the organization. Observing the corpse, people comment on who could have killed such a powerful man. Right after, someone points to the second body, identifying the priest's subordinate lying there. Completely horrified by the scene, the reporter covers her mouth and apologizes on air. Feeling nauseous, one of her colleagues asks her to go rest for a bit. Moving away from the group, she leans against a wall and starts coughing heavily. Just then, he appears, offering a bottle of water, and she asks, surprised, what he's doing here. With a smile, he explains he was nearby and knew she had come here. Feeling embarrassed, she complains that he's never seen her at a good moment, only when she's making a fool of herself. Hugging her, he says it doesn't matter, because she's beautiful no matter what. Looking for her, the cameraman asks if she's feeling a little better. Then he turns and sees the two of them hugging in a corner, not knowing what to say. Getting an idea, he announces that the rescue team has saved the girl kidnapped by the organization. Still in the hug, she is surprised to hear the news about the interview with the girl. Changing scenes, a man comforts 2 children who were rescued from the confrontation site. Breaking the hug, she says she's going over there and asks him to wait for her. Watching her leave, the cameraman cries for not having had a chance with her. Now with the child, the reporter comforts her with a gentle voice and a smile. Watching everything from afar, the protagonist stands with his arms crossed, waiting for the interview to end. Looking at the gem in his hand, he says he will be able to save Fei Fei very soon. With all the elements collected, he states that the third person of the judgment will appear. Seeing the figure behind him, he decides he will call it Dragon from now on. The scene changes to the Shazhou Central Hospital. At the entrance, a doctor asks the newcomers to follow him for a general checkup. Inside, a young man sits on a bench, lamenting that he hasn't seen his master in a long time. Hearing a familiar voice, he turns to the side with a surprised expression. Right in front of him, the masked man suddenly appears and gestures for silence with his finger. Using his power, he controls a passing doctor to ensure their privacy. Sitting down with them, he hears the young man ask to take his sister's body, but the masked man reveals that she's still alive, though in a very weak state. Completely shocked, the young man asks if what he just heard is really true. He then activates his holy light healing power on the sleeping girl. Instantly, she opens her eyes, and her brother cries out her name, overcome with emotion. Healing the young man as well, he tells them to sneak out so no one discovers them. Crying with joy, the boy agrees, saying he'll do whatever his master commands. Handing him a box of money, he tells the young man to enroll in the Hero University. The young man then realizes that to do so, he'll need a much stronger ability. Handing him a forging orb, he tells him to use it to get into the university. With that, the young man absorbs the power, gaining a C-rank forging ability. Promising not to disappoint, he says his goodbyes, and the masked man tells him to live well. A short time later, the masked man finally decides to leave the hospital. Activating his transformation, he reverts to his normal appearance and leaves the premises. Immediately after, the reporter finds him and calls his name, surprising the young man. When she asks where he was, he replies that he was just helping take care of the children. She then explains that the children are safe, and the association will contact their families. As they walk, she mentions that the homeless children will be taken in by an orphanage. Smiling at the news, he says he hopes they grow up healthy and happy. At that moment, She unexpectedly gets close and suddenly kisses him. Caught off guard, he freezes, completely stunned by the kiss. In another room, he watches a blonde girl lying in bed, hooked up to machines. Looking at her, he says he hopes the sacred healing will work to save her. Without wasting time, he extends his hand and activates the sacred ability he acquired earlier. Then, a great light fills the entire room as he uses his healing power. Despite the power, the girl in the bed shows no reaction, remaining unconscious. Realizing it failed, he's completely shocked, not understanding why the healing didn't work. Approaching the bed, he leans in and calls her name, hoping for a response. Frustrated, he leans on the bed rail and questions how the healing could have failed like this. With a determined look, he begins to analyze the situation to find a new solution. Just then, he notices small blue lights floating near the unconscious girl's face. When he tries to touch them, his hand passes right through as the lights dodge his touch. Observing more closely, he realizes the lights are devouring her mental spirit as food. He then concludes that the light ability won't work, as she won't wake up. Realizing the danger, he decides he needs to find whoever gave her the blue pill. Before leaving, he decides to enhance his 3 abilities to increase his combat power. Channeling his energy, he prepares to begin the process of upgrading his powers. Soon after, the system displays the first upgraded ability, his transformation to C rank. Next, his clone ability also evolves, reaching the same power level. With intense concentration, he focuses on strengthening his last ability for the coming battle. Believing he has enough power, he prepares to attempt an evolution to the legendary S rank. Kneeling on the floor, he begins to concentrate all his energy for the great evolution. He finally succeeds, and the system displays his new S rank ability. Seeing his new power, he says he's even more excited to find that guy. On a rooftop, a mysterious figure is controlling a hero who stands looking out at the city. The man in the top hat asks the hero if he has any new information. With his arms crossed, the hero confirms he has information but questions if the man can afford it. The man replies that if the information is true, the price will be very high. Recalling the fight, he mentions the destruction of the Shoujo organization by the heroine Blanche, but the hero adds that she had help from a mysterious man named Snake. The man in the top hat says he already knew that, as it's well-known news. Then the hero reveals that both villains have 2 abilities, surprising the buyer. Doubting the information, the man in the top hat asks if dual users are even possible. Intrigued, he begins to consider the possibility he just heard. Showing a vial, the hero asks if he's ever seen this ability medicine before. Pointing at the object, the man in the top hat asks if it's really a medicine. The hero then explains that the drink can give a second ability to someone who already has one. Still doubtful, the man in the top hat says it's nonsense and asks for proof. To demonstrate, he states that his ability is strength, and he'll show what happens next. Without hesitation, he brings the small vial to his lips and drinks the entire liquid. Right after, he simply crushes the glass in his hand, shattering the object to pieces. Instantly, the man in the top hat asks if that's a fire-type ability. Throwing a punch upwards, he shows his new power in action for the buyer. Revealing his source, he says he made a deal with Yuji, and that's how he knows. Still shocked, the man asks if he knows what material is used to make it. Saying he doesn't know, he states that he's said enough and wants his reward. Agreeing, the man in the top hat hands over a jar with 15 blue pills as the agreed payment. Before leaving, he says he has one last very important question to ask. Worried, he asks if the blue light on his body is a side effect of the pill, but the man in the top hat tells him not to worry, dismissing the hero and leaving. Saying goodbye to the hero, the man in the top hat says he looks forward to their next meeting. Right after, he dissolves into energy and vanishes into thin air. As soon as the man vanishes, the control over the hero is broken, revealing the protagonist. Analyzing the situation, he wonders what scheme is behind such a dangerous side effect. Walking across the rooftop, he finds a blonde man sitting on the ground, completely desolate and sad. Hearing a child's voice, the blonde man looks up, his eyes welling with tears. The man then throws away the vial of blue pills, looking as if he has given up on everything. Seeing this, the protagonist tells him to stop taking the pills for his daughter's sake. Just then, a little girl appears at the door, looking around with a confused expression. Running to him, the girl asks why her father is sleeping on the rooftop. Waking up confused, he hears his daughter say he lied about celebrating her birthday. Just then, the little girl finds the jar of pills on the ground and asks what it is. Scared, he asks her to give it back, warning her that it's not a toy. Trying to understand, he realizes he has no memory of when the trade was made. Letting it go, he calls his daughter over so they can go cut the birthday cake. Back at the office, he's using the printer while a colleague watches him from his desk. His colleague then sarcastically asks if he even remembers to come to work anymore. Soon after, someone else asks for help with a crazy guy who wants to post a missing person notice. Showing the paper, he presents presents a notice for a missing cousin named Li Ye-tian. Reading the notice, the man says in confusion that he's never heard of that name before, but the protagonist says it's a code and tells his colleague to get out of the way. Suddenly, an alarm blares, warning of a disaster-level A monster invasion. Hearing the alert, the employees panic and run desperately through the office. Realizing the location, he notices the attack is near where he lives. Without wasting a moment, he calls Xiao Jue, worriedly asking where she is. On the call, she struggles to reply that she's at the condo and there's a monster. Hearing a scream, the call suddenly drops, leaving him in complete despair. Seeing this, his colleague asks if something happened to Sister Lin. Ignoring the danger, he runs off as his colleague says he's no hero. Running towards the building, he desperately screams Xiao Jue's name. Thinking about the danger, he tells himself he can't lose her, no matter what. Arriving on the rooftop, he finds a giant monster and is shocked by the scene. The system then displays the creature's details. A very dangerous A-rank monster. Analyzing the situation, he realizes it would take at least 3 A-rank heroes. Meanwhile, 2 heroines, 1 B-rank and 1 C-rank, arrive to fight. Seeing the 2, the monster lets out a sharp cry, preparing an energy attack. It then fires a blast towards the flying red-haired heroine. Screaming for her to dodge, the other heroine watches the attack hit the building hard. Scolding her partner, she says C-rank heroes are useless against that monster. Sighing in frustration, she's at a loss for words with her teammate. Suddenly, the heroine hears a cry for help, coming from inside the burning building. The hole in the wall reveals a woman being held by another who is about to fall. Trapped in the hole, she tries to save her friend who is dangling outside. Crying desperately, the dangling woman screams that she doesn't want to die and begs for help. With great effort, her friend tells her to calm down and says she'll pull her up. Screaming in desperation, the woman begs them to hurry, saying she absolutely doesn't want to die. Just then, a large piece of concrete breaks off the wall, flying at high speed. It smashes right into the woman's hand, forcing her to let go of her friend. Then, with nothing to hold on to, they both fall from the building together. Screaming in freefall, the girl despairs, thinking she's about to die. But suddenly, the red-haired heroine appears in the air and catches her firmly in her arms. Relieved, the girl asks if she's dead, as the heroine introduces herself and says she's safe. Flying through the sky, the heroine carries the girl to safety, away from the immediate danger. At that moment, the TV reporter notices the other woman still hasn't been rescued. Then, everyone sees the other girl falling alone at high speed from above. In that same instant, a blur flashes by so fast that no one can see what happened. Confirming the rescue, the reporter says something flew by and saved the other girl. In the distance, the other heroine screams desperately, telling everyone to dodge the attack. Right after, the monster's attack heads towards a news helicopter. Using her power, the heroine unleashes a gust of wind to try and stop the blast, but the explosion still hits the helicopter, which sways from the impact. Nearby, the red-haired heroine also feels the shockwave from the exploding attack. Meanwhile, the masked man lands safely on the ground, carrying the girl in his arms. Setting her down on a bench, he apologizes for the slightly clumsy rescue. Touching her face, he apologizes for being a little late to save her. He then uses his ability to heal her arm, which was injured in the fall. Wrapping her in his cloak, he says she's healed and won't feel any more pain. Still confused, she slowly opens her eyes, trying to understand what just happened. Seeing the masked man, she asks if she's dead, still not believing she was saved. Recognizing the mask, she asks if he's good or evil, and if he was the one who saved her. But he says he was just passing by, not wanting to expose his identity and cause trouble. Stepping onto a platform, he tells her to go to the shelter and evacuate the area. Screaming for him to wait, she watches him fly away, disappearing into the city sky. Watching him leave, she finds it strange, but feels like she knows him from somewhere. High above, he activates his ability and creates a clone to help with the mission. Granting it powers, he says the clone will have healing and ice abilities. Deciding on its gender, he declares that the clone will be a girl from now on. Instantly, the clone transforms into a girl with a new appearance. He then announces the birth of the third member of Judgment, named Rabbit Mao. Giving the order, he sends the clone to save people in danger and prevent more deaths. With that, he turns to face the monster, which notices the arrival of a new person. High atop another building, an unknown fighter appears, observing the chaos. With a look of disdain, she complains about running into trouble even on her vacation. Recognizing the fighter, the reporter says she's the city's greatest genius heroine. At this, the crowd starts talking about her return, noticing her new look. With a wave, she asks if people still remember her after all this time. Deciding to observe, he backs away, saying he'll analyze the hero's powers first. Facing the creature, she says a big rat will make a great punching bag. Without wasting time, the monster opens its mouth and fires a powerful energy blast. Worried about the attack, the other heroine yells for her senior to dodge as fast as she can, but she refuses refuses, saying she needs to take the hit to see the result. The attack flies right past and explodes on a building behind her, missing its target. Impressed, the reporter comments that she chose to take the hit, true to her style. The dust settles, revealing the ground completely destroyed and cracked by the force of the blast. Realizing its attack failed, the monster gets confused and lets out a strange grunt. Appearing in the air, the heroine floats above it, preparing her body for a counterattack. With a serious look, she clenches her fist tightly, concentrating energy for the strike. Then she lunges forward and lands a devastating blow directly on the giant monster's body. Unleashing multiple strikes, she hits the monster's body with a rapid sequence of attacks. Then she asks with a smile why the giant rat isn't screaming anymore. Taking the hits, the monster is left reeling from the force of the blows. Leaping to the edge of the building, she prepares for her next move in the fight. Grabbing the creature's tail, she holds it with all her might so it can't escape. Right after, she starts spinning the monster in the air, which screams in complete surprise. Spinning faster and faster, she laughs, saying this is all very entertaining for her. Then she finally hurls the creature with all her strength towards the ground. Seeing the destruction, the other heroine says the girl is crazy, like a monster herself. Meanwhile, the new masked heroine appears in the sky, observing the whole situation from a distance. In the middle of the street, a man runs desperately from a falling piece of a building, but the masked heroine appears and saves him at the last second, shouting for him to be careful. Thanking her for the rescue, he asks which company she's from, as he's never seen her before. She then introduces herself as Rabbit Mao, an official member of the organization called Judgment. In the distance, a group of men remarks that the organization only has elite members. Recognizing the heroine and her roommate, she approaches the bench to help. A man then explains that they fell and asks her to heal the two girls. Without wasting time, she activates her ability and begins to heal everyone's injuries. Seeing this, the men are amazed by the incredible healing power she possesses. Afterward, she tells everyone to get to the shelter quickly to protect themselves. Suddenly, the monster lets out a deafening scream, giving everyone an intense headache. Feeling the pain, the heroine says the sound is different and feels like it's about to explode. At this, the other heroine wonders if the monster has completely lost its mind now. From afar, the masked man understands that the creature is absorbing people's souls. Instantly, the monster stands still as it absorbs all the spiritual energy around it. Surrounded by energy, the monster stands still, absorbing all the power for itself. With a smirk, it concentrates the energy in its mouth, preparing a new attack. Horrified, the heroine realizes the monster is devouring the spiritual energy of the dead. With this power, the monster's eye recovers and its wounds begin to close. Watching the scene, the people wonder if the heroine still has any chance. Then the other heroine suggests she retreat, sensing it's about to get stronger. The monster slams the ground, attacking uncontrollably and with great fury. But the heroine charges forward, yelling for the stupid rat to shut its mouth. She then lands a blow that causes a huge explosion at the scene. Exhausted, she wonders if she's finally defeated the monster this time. But a surprise attack suddenly emerges, hurtling toward her at high speed. In an instant, the blow pierces through her body, severely wounding the heroine. In great pain, she curses it for such a cowardly and despicable attack from behind. Using its tail, the monster forcefully throws her away, slamming her to the ground. She crashes violently, hitting the ground hard and suffering serious injuries. Seeing this, the city panics, crying out for someone to save the heroine. Even injured, she says she can't be defeated and must eliminate the monster quickly. Rushing to help, the other heroine supports her senior, who is badly hurt. Angrily, she asks why her partner is still there and if she isn't afraid of dying. Crying, the heroine says her duty is to protect everyone and to never run away. Hearing this, the senior is left speechless, just watching her partner's determination. Impressed, the reporter praises the heroines for risking their lives to protect everyone. Just then, the monster's shadow looms over them, ready for the final blow. Seeing this, the masked man says angrily that the monster shouldn't have done that. He then throws a sharp object which flies at high speed toward the creature. The blow hits the monster's tail, and it screams in pain from the impact. High on a building, he appears with his clone, watching the injured monster below. Announcing his arrival, the reporter says the hero UG has appeared to save them. Celebrating his appearance, the people cheer for their idol and comment on his new partner. Confused, the two heroines wonder what the newcomers intend to do. Summoning several objects, he hurls them all at once toward the monster. Unable to dodge, the metal stakes strike the creature's body with great force. Screaming in pain, the monster is pushed back, completely immobilized by the attacks. Watching the scene, the heroine understands that the monster can't be defeated easily. Then, the other heroine innocently suggests they should just just tie its mouth shut. Giving her a light smack on the head, the senior angrily tells her to stop talking nonsense. Raising his hand, the masked man uses his ability to control and lift the monster. Flying through the air, the monster is thrown far away, getting farther and farther. Its mouth open, it screams as stakes pierce its body, causing more pain. Then the masked man fires energy rings that tightly bind the monster in midair. Using his power, he creates a huge metal wall out of thin air in the sky. Right after, the wall folds over, trapping the monster inside and causing an explosion. Giving an order, he tells Mao Rabbit not to let the creature open its mouth. She then activates her snowflake tornado, surrounding the monster with ice. As it's hit, the monster screams in pain from the impact of the freezing attack. Seeing the monster frozen, the people celebrate the incredible high-level ability. Completely trapped, the creature screams as its spiritual energy is contained by the ice. Even trapped, the monster begins to absorb spiritual energy to recover again. Shocked, the heroine realizes it's using the power to regenerate its body again. Raising his hands, he declares he won't let the monster absorb any more energy. Flying over the city, he explains that from a distance, the monster can't absorb anything. He then activates his metal storm, preparing a final, full-power attack. The attack hits the monster head-on, which screams in pain from the ability's impact. In the distance, a man comments that the monster was sliced into tiny snowflakes. Shortly after, the system announces that the monster's ability has been successfully stolen. Analyzing the new power, he notes that it's a type of healing ability. In the sky, a helicopter approaches and asks everyone not to panic. The reporter then announces she's flying in closer to broadcast the situation live. Pointing to the sky, she's surprised to see him floating on a metal platform. Excited, she waves and asks to interview him to learn more about the mysterious hero. Witnessing the swift victory, the public is shocked by the mysterious masked hero's power. Feeling the overwhelming pressure, the fighter concludes he must be a powerful S-rank user. Just then, the masked clone descends from the sky and lands right in front of the two heroines. Not understanding the situation, the fighter suspiciously asks what she plans to do with them. Attacking by surprise, she launches 2 energy blasts, and her partner yells for her to dodge. Thinking she's about to die, the heroine shields herself with her arm, bracing for the worst, but she realizes a healing energy is enveloping her, completely surprised by the light. Then her partner says her wounds have been healed, and she questions who did it. Turning to the side, the clone introduces herself as Mao Rabbit from the Judgment Organization. In the distance, the helicopter reports that the new member also has healing powers. With this news, the crowd goes wild for the new heroine, praising her beauty. Thanking her for the help, she asks if Judgment is a new hero agency. Flying over the city, they receive the thanks of the people for saving the day. Celebrating the victory, the people cheer for the heroes, thanking them for risking their lives. Jealously, the fighter complains that the new heroes stole the whole show for themselves. Up above, he says his godson contacted him to meet about new information. As he's speaking, he receives a strange signal, not understanding what's happening. Then the clone warns that her time is running out, as her duration is limited. Soon after, she begins to disappear into thin air, slowly turning into energy particles. Recovering the orbs, he realizes he can use clones to complete missions in the future. Receiving her memories, he gets irritated by the disgusting looks the guys gave her, so he decides to never create a female clone again, calling the idea complete trash. Down below, his godson waits for him, leaning against a car and casually singing a song. Seeing this, he stares at the young man with disapproval, annoyed by his lack of composure. Looking around, he notices the forest and wonders if his godson is being followed. Just then, the young man runs toward him, excitedly asking if he brought new information. But a noise from the woods interrupts their conversation, putting the young man on alert. Suddenly, a terrifying howl echoes from within the dark, silent forest. Lying on the ground, a beast man cries and begs the old man to go easy on him, but an older man appears, accusing him of selling family secrets. He then says he didn't expect the old man to follow the young man all the way here. The beast man complains that he's already been beaten and promises not to get into any more trouble. Angrily, the old man tells him to shut up and stay by the wall. Pointing at the masked man, he questions how he gave his son an ability. Revealing the truth, he says his son already has an A-rank ability. With a smile, he claims that granting 2 or 3 abilities is a piece of cake for him. Intrigued, the old man asks if that includes even an A-rank hero. thinking calmly, he concludes that people who desire power will do anything to get it. With open arms, he confirms it's possible, but the price will be very high. Interested in the proposal, the old man asks him to explain all the details of the process. Showing a blue pill, he asks if the old man has ever seen the strange object. Taking the item, he examines it and says he's never seen anything like it before. Explaining the pill, he reveals that it triples the combat power of whoever consumes it. He then says he doesn't produce the pills, but he negotiates with his son to get information. The old man orders the beast man to come down and tell him everything he knows about the blue pills. Hiding in the cave, the beast man reveals that the hero Bing Chuan used the drug. Holding the pill, he finally understands the reason behind the accidents caused by the hero. With a serious look, he realizes the masked man wants him to investigate the organization. But he says he also needs help getting into the white cavity plan. Showing a ring, he says he needs to get inside to obtain the ability genes. He then explains that the genes are crucial for creating the ability medicine. Still doubtful, the old man asks how he can prove the medicine's effectiveness. Confidently, he says his own existence is the greatest proof there is. At that moment, the young man transforms back, afraid of affecting his future promotion. Annoyed, the old man punches him in the head, saying they are a family. After some thought, he finally agrees to work with the masked man from now on. Climbing onto his platform, he says goodbye and that he looks forward to good cooperation. Changing scenes, a plane prepares for takeoff in a new city. Inside the plane, the protagonist is on the phone, asking about a frying pan in the cabinet. On the other end, the woman complains she's looked everywhere and found nothing. He then tells her to use the card he gave her to buy whatever she wants. Embarrassed by an old man beside him, he quickly says goodbye and hangs up the phone. The old man next to him laughs at the situation, making the protagonist even more ashamed. Soon after, the plane takes off, beginning the journey to a new and unknown destination. When he turns around, he recognizes one of the passengers and is surprised by the coincidence. Sitting there, the two girls are talking, not noticing him watching them. Next to them, a man comments on the two pretty girls on the plane. Just then, a flight attendant approaches and asks if he can pass her a towel, but one of the girls accuses him of being a pervert, not knowing who he really is. In that same instant, the flight attendant drops the towel on the floor, right in front of him. Suddenly, a man points a gun at the flight attendant, who desperately cries for help. Shouting at everyone, he orders them not to move and to put their hands on their heads. At the same moment, other men stand up and hold all the passengers hostage. Looking at the weapons, he realizes they are all made from mutant beasts. One of the men shouts at him, ordering him to raise his hands and put them behind his head. Obeying the order, he thinks he needs to find a way to resolve the situation. In the cockpit, the man orders the flight attendant to open the door, which she fearfully obeys. From the outside, he hears several noises coming from the cabin, unsure of what they are. Sitting at the controls, the leader tells his partner to proceed with the hijacking plan. Tied up on the floor, the flight attendant panics when she sees the manual pilot and asks about their destination. He then reveals that they are going to the tallest building in Shazhou to die there. With a serious and determined look, he prepares to execute his suicide plan. Watching the passengers, the men keep everyone silent with their weapons drawn. Next to the protagonist, the old man sighs with a look of infatuation at the girl. With disdain, she complains about the old man thinking of pretty girls before he dies. Observing the situation, the protagonist wonders where these dangerous hijackers are from. Overhearing the conversation, the girl says they must be from Area 35. Intrigued, he asks why she thinks that, and she questions if he doesn't know the story. She then explains that Area 35 was invaded by people from the second area. Since then, they've demanded an apology from the government, but their request was denied. Now he understands the reason behind the extreme and violent attack that is happening. Suddenly, one of the men shouts, asking what they are whispering about. Grabbing the girl by the arm, he says she seems very bold and sassy. He then takes her to the plane's door and threatens to throw her out. Desperate, she screams and begs him not to throw her, crying out for help. Seeing the scene, the protagonist stands up in anger, calling the man trash. In an instant, a blow strikes the hijacker's chest, leaving him stunned. Suddenly, a man holds the girl in his arms and tells her not to be scared. Soon after, a caped hero appears and apologizes for being a little late. The other hero, named Captain Cigarette, holds the girl safely in his arms. Celebrating their arrival, the passengers shout that the A-rank heroes have finally arrived. Angered, the hijackers prepare to attack the two heroes who appeared on the plane. Without wasting time, the caped hero charges forward and hits the two men with one blow. Looking at the cape, the protagonist realizes it is a sentient soul equipment. Recognizing the heroes, the leader of the hijackers prepares to fight with great anger. With a serious look, the hero asks if they still won't surrender and drop their weapons, but the leader refuses, saying the people of the second area are treacherous. Then one of the men activates his ability, inflating his body for a massive explosion. Startled, The hero senses the danger and braces for the impact of the ability. In that same instant, an explosion rips through the cockpit, damaging the front of the plane. With its engine in flames, the plane begins to plummet from the sky at high speed. Desperate, a passenger screams for help. Terrified of the ongoing fall, shouting at the passengers, he tells everyone to put on their oxygen masks quickly. Meanwhile, he asks his partner if he can lift the plane with his cape, but the other hero replies that he can't, as he is not a powerful S-rank hero. Worried, he says he can only carry a few citizens at a time with his cape. Hearing this, the passengers desperately beg to be taken and offer a lot of money. Watching the scene, the protagonist fears they might decide to attack the heroes all at once. Amid the chaos, passengers scream desperately, each wanting to be saved first. Then the hero tells the girl to go back to her seat and buckle up. Returning to her seat, she reassures her friend, telling her everything is okay now. Kneeling on the floor, the caped hero calls the captain and says he has an idea, but the captain refuses, saying he can't leave the passengers behind.